Test, test.
Are we ready? Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. on Thursday, it's not Thursday, on Monday, August 29th. As I've been ill for a week, so I'm a little bit. As you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to go into work session? Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're in work session.
Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Ms. Drake or Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion passes. Okay, I guess we move on.
Yes. First on work session, update on Christiansburg Strand construction and facilities overview, Montgomery County Public School Systems.
Right. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. How are you? So tonight we're going to provide for you the presentation, Board of Supervisors members, that we provided to our school board last week. I wanted to provide you an opportunity, to ask us some questions regarding that information. So what we're going to do first is provide an update on our elementary construction, tell you a little bit about the outstanding items from those original plans. We also have a video that if you would like to watch, we can. It's about 6 minutes or so that shows the inside of our new buildings. But I wanted to leave that to you all. We can watch it today together, or we can have it that you could watch that later if you chose to do so. And then we're going to share with you our facilities needs, a funding overview of the funds that we have available to support our building needs, identification of the priority projects that was done by our exceptional team members, and then an update on our current renovation needs. So our project updates, the items outstanding from our original plans. You're going to hear a little bit today about some other things that need to be done in these schools. So what we're talking about right now is from the original plans for these schools. So in Christiansburg Elementary, we are still awaiting the glass for the 2 doors and the tile area at the B section hallway of the lavatories. Where our students are in school, they're enjoying their day. You know, it's a beautiful learning environment, and so both our students and our staff are really excited to have that renovated space to be learning in. In Bellevue Elementary, as you all know, there are supply chain concerns all across our country right now. So we didn't receive the windows and door glass in time. We're awaiting those so that they can be installed, and then also currently still working on the VDOT turning lane. In Christiansburg Primary, we're about 75 to 80% done with the construction and renovations. And that timeline, the anticipated completion date, was December 2022, and we feel we're well on track with those projects. I do have our members of our team from the operations side here with us today to address questions that you may have specifically about those projects. Before I go to the next slide with the video, did anybody want to ask questions on those?
For Bellevue, the playground, the old playground, well, I mean, the kids are using the old playground, but the other part of the playground is still kind of stored. That's part of the whole process. Is that going to be?
Yes, so we have that listed as one of our needs that need to be addressed, that we do feel we need to purchase new playground equipment. The original plan had been that playground equipment was cut down and removed, and the thought at that time had been that it was going to be reinstalled. However, that playground equipment is really at the end of its usable life, and so the funds that would be put into reinstalling that in another place really isn't going to give us the return on investment. We really feel that we should put some new playground equipment in there.
And then the turning lane for Bellevue, it just doesn't look like much is happening. I mean, there's grading, I see that, but.
Let me get Mr. Jay Smeltzer to answer that question for you. He's right over here.
Yes, the turning lane is coming along as quickly as it can with all of the VDOT regulations and things we have to follow. They come out and do inspections quite often. We did put in the curbing. I don't know if you've noticed that. We put in curbing that has been installed, a concrete curb. Those haven't been installed. And we did speak to the homeowner that lives down that little road beside that house. We had to get permission from them to put in some gravel and some stuff down through their driveway and some big concrete structures we had to install. All that's been done. You can't really see the concrete structures because they're under the ground, but all that has been installed. We still have some grading issues that we're working out with VDOT. So all that hopefully will be completed earlier this week as far as the questions on the grading and everything, and I'm hoping that we can start putting asphalt down maybe later this week, hopefully, depending on weather and how VDOT does with us.
Otherwise, it looks absolutely beautiful, I think.
Wonderful.
Just a quick question on the turn lane. Is there going to be a left turn lane?
Yes, at this time, there's supposed to be a small little turn area for that marked out on the asphalt.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the reason why we're putting that in over there, to still allow traffic to flow, and then they can turn, have a little pull-out thing right in the middle when you're coming from, I guess you would be going towards Radford that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other supervisors have questions on the renovation for the elementary schools?
I just got one. On Bellevue, now we're saying we need to redo the roof on it.
Yes, sir.
When the company come down there and was going to check it over for remodeling or anything, they didn't get up on the roof and check that?
So yes, sir, we did have roof inspections from that time. I can't tell you why it was not determined for those to be done during the renovation, but we did have roof inspections from that time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Whitaker, could you tell me how much money you have spent on these 3 projects current?
I can get that answer for you if you give me just a minute.
Certainly.
Katie, can you pull that together? Work on, okay. What we'll do, how about I show the video and then she can do that piece for
Thank
us. All right. Ms. Drake, do I just push play? Yes. So what you're seeing here is actually a really great tradition at Christiansburg Elementary. As you know, it's third through fifth. And so they clap in the third graders on their first day of school. All of the other students clap them in. And then on the last day of school, everybody claps out the fifth graders. So we are ready for an awesome school year. That was exciting to see those beautiful buildings, wasn't it? Thank you to Ms. Drake and Ms. Morgan for putting that together. And so now we're going to share a little bit about our other facilities needs. And so what I want to do is preface it kind of with the why did this presentation happen. And I think Mr. King's question was a good introduction to that. And so when I was asked to serve as the interim superintendent, you know, I of course stepped into the role when the operational side of the house had not been where I had been spending my time. My role is, you know, typically as the deputy superintendent, and so I'm over everything on the curriculum side. And so then when, you know, our previous assistant superintendent left, then I picked up those duties as well. And in picking up those duties, I began to meet with the facilities team, and we have exceptional leaders in our facilities department. And they're here behind us. But as I began to meet with them, they shared with me very quickly some things that they thought that I might need to be aware of when we were talking about projects. I was trying to wrap my head around Christiansburg High School so that we could make sure to keep that project running. And so at that time, they kind of shared with me some other things that they thought, you know, we might want to look at and address. And so I'm going to share those with you today. Starting with a funding overview. And so the reason we're starting with the funding overview is because, as many of you are aware, we applied for funding for Christiansburg High School a little bit over $8 million. That was approved when I stepped into this role. You know, we applied for those ESSER funds and they were approved. But the problem is they have to be spent by September 30th, 2024. And as I was sharing earlier, there are supply chain concerns all across our country. And so looking at the funding for our projects through the lens of wanting to make sure that we were able to spend that money in a timely way, but also making sure that the deadlines, you know, were met. And so what we wanted to do, you know, that money is going to CHS in addition to the money that was secured through the bond. And so what we wanted to do first was identify what other funding sources could be utilized for Christiansburg High School, and then B, projects that could be completed more quickly with the ESSER funding, with the goal of identifying, if we could, funding that we could use for CHS that did not have that September 30, 2024 deadline, and then projects that we could apply for the ESSER funding with that we could complete in a more timely fashion, but still secure the funding that we needed to meet the needs of the school division. So what you see on this slide here is an overview of the funds that would be available or that are available in the coming years and currently. So at the top of the list, you see we carried over from last year a little over $714,000. And as I shared, this presentation was done for our board on the 16th. And so at that time, we were awaiting the availability based upon Board of Supervisors approval on 8/22, which we did receive. And there are no deadlines for when that spending must be done. The next column you see designation. Undesignated means we have not yet determined what we would use those funds for. And then obviously if it has a project beside it like CHS, those were where those funds were designated to be used. Our state construction funds are funds that came through the governor's budget this year, and we have a little over $3.1 million. Those funds are available now, and they must be spent by June 30th of 2025. Those are undesignated. We have the balance of the 2.5 cents that we receive from real estate taxes from the Board of Supervisors. So that's an additional $738,000 that is available now without a deadline and is also undesignated. Then we look at our next 2 years. So for fiscal year '23, which is now, and then the next year, 2024, we will have 2.259 in each of those years. This year's funds are available at this time. They do not have an expending deadline, and they are undesignated. Then we anticipated next year's funds at 2.259 again. That would be available next July. Those do not have deadlines and are also undesignated. The next line is the one that I spoke to on the last slide, the $8 million that was approved for the Christiansburg High School project. Those funds are available now, but the deadline for those to be spent or encumbered is 9/30/2024, and currently are designated for Christiansburg High School. We then also have the CSLFRF, that's a lot to say, HVAC funds, and that's in the amount of $1.9 million that's available now. And those deadlines are December 31st, 2026. And obviously, we have those designated towards Christiansburg High School. The bonds that were issued in the amount of $90 million is available now with a goal of 85% being spent by April of 2025. And those have been designated for Christiansburg High School as well. So our total funds are a little over $109 million. CHS has been designated $100 million of that. And our undesignated funds are a little bit over $9 million. So just say, well, what can you use some of those fund groups for? So the money we get has different rules on it. So the uses for the state construction funds, that was that 3.15. These funds, again, came from the governor's budget, and eligible expenditures must be non-recurring in nature and can include any of these following: school construction, additions, infrastructure, site acquisition, renovations, technology, other items to modernize class equipment, and school safety equipment or school safety renovations. Ineligible items are repair or replacement of parking lots or for facilities that are predominantly used for extracurricular athletic activities. The allowable uses for the ESSER funds, so that was the $8 million. So construction projects or purchase of lands or buildings must receive prior approval from the Virginia Department of Education. Minor projects are approved through our ESSER application process. So what that means is there's two different types of approvals. Bigger projects, like the funds we received in the amount of $8 million, the project itself must be approved by the VDOE. A smaller project that's minor, the way that is approved is we have an application, we submit it through an online system, and it's approval of that application that allows us to use the funds for those minor projects. Any allowable use of these funds under impact aid. So impact aid is a federal type of aid. So the broad federal impact aid definition of construction includes new construction, as well as remodeling, alterations, renovations, and repairs under which many activities related to COVID-19 would likely fall. The term construction means the preparation of drawing and specifications for school facilities, erecting, building, acquiring, altering, remodeling, repairing, or extending school facilities, inspecting and supervising the construction of school facilities, and debt service for such activities. To give a couple of more examples, that basic federal impact aid is very broad. So just to give you some examples of what that looks like within their definitions. So school facility repairs and improvements to enable operation of schools, to reduce risk of virus transmission and exposure to environmental health hazards, and to support student health needs. Inspection, testing, maintenance, repair, replacement, and upgrade projects to improve the indoor air quality in school facilities, including mechanical and non-mechanical heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, filtering, purification, and other air cleaning, fans, control systems, and window and door repair and replacement. Developing strategies and implementing public health protocols, including to the greatest extent practicable, policies in line with guidance from the CDC for the reopening and operation of school facilities to effectively maintain the health and safety of students, educators, and other staff. And then this is the very broad definition is the last one. Other activities that are necessary to maintain the operation of and continuity of services in the LEA as local education agency and continuing to employ existing staff of the LEA. So essentially that last one is things that you need to do to maintain operation of buildings and to be able to continue to provide an education to students and employees. And so in addition to the current renovations at BES, CES, CPS, and the CHS renovation, there are many projects that we have that need to be addressed. And working with the team worked together to develop two lists, a priority needs list and then a current renovation list. So the priority needs list are building needs identified across the division, and they fall into these categories: safety, roofing, HVAC, exterior, grounds, plumbing, and electrical. It's important to note that if there is an item in one of the current renovations that is a priority, you will see it on the priority list and not on the current renovation list. So we took each of those items and we looked at them in terms of safety, which was the top of our list. Again, so you're going to see items on both lists for current renovations, but if they're on the priority list, it's because we felt that they needed to be addressed first. And then the second list is the current renovation list. These are items for those renovations at BES, CES, CPS that were not addressed in the current renovation at those schools and also at the operations center. You know, the feeling there being that if we walk away from a renovated building, we should walk away with it renovated and ready to go and not feeling like there are outstanding projects that need to be addressed. A renovation should be a finished product. So I'll share with you our priorities, need overview. We do have, as I shared, our team members with us. I'll introduce them as we go, and then you can ask them questions after I go through this if you have them. Philip, would you stand up for me? Philip Hash is one of our project managers, and he focuses on our safety and environmentals. And so at each of the schools here, you can see the description of the concern that we feel should be addressed as a safety priority, and then a quote or estimate. It's important to note some of these are estimates and some of these are quotes. We wanted to work to get the information forward in a timely manner and can't always get an estimate right on the spot, but we feel that these are very good numbers based upon whether we got an actual quote or industry standard. So at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School, we need to address the water pressure controls for the fire sprinkler system. That's the water coming into the school, and that's about $128,000. Christiansburg Middle School, syncing the strobes for the fire alarm system. What that means is in two different locations, the strobes may be on a different sync, and so that's a concern for our firefighters who may be epileptic or have other, concerns that strobing light is not good for them. At Falling Branch Elementary School, the fire alarm system wire fault repair. Montgomery Central Operations System is replacing the fire alarm systems with a new panel at the main entrance and new devices. Those two systems are connected, and so the main system is in Montgomery Central, is in the Ops Center, and the way that those have to be addressed right now, you would go to the Operations Center before going over to Montgomery Central where their students are because of the way the system is. At Shawsville Middle School, we need to replace obsolete fire alarm systems and devices, and at Auburn Elementary, replacing an obsolete fire alarm panel. And so we can no longer purchase the pieces that we need to repair those, and so replaces for those who need it. So our total recommendations in the safety category are, a little over $239,000. Would you all like me to stop as we go through the different sections, or do you want me to continue on?
Board members, you want to stop and ask each question, or would you rather have the whole presentation and then go back and ask questions? Whole presentation, good. Okay, continue,
Okay.
Dr. Whitaker.
All right. Another is a set aside. I will be honest and say I selected $1 million. We worked, with Mr. Gerritsen, who is our Director of Safety, also with Mr. Hash in our buildings. In our strategic plan this year, the board has put forward to do a safety study. And so we feel that since we are doing a safety study, we need to earmark some funds to address safety needs within our buildings. And so when you see the end and the total estimated needs, we have included $1 million. Those could be things like the safety concerns I just shared with you, as well as additional badge readers for our schools, cameras, vestibules and entryways that may need to be looked at. And so this is a placeholder. It is not based on actual cost estimates, but really making sure that we set aside money to address these needs. Next are our roofing priorities. You'll see on the right pictures of Bellevue Elementary and Christiansburg Elementary School. The red section you can see is where a failed inspection report was given to us. Then there's like a mustard color. You don't see the mustard on Bellevue, but if you look down on Christiansburg Elementary along the perimeter of the building, you can see some of that mustard color there. That's poor. And then the yellow is failing and the green is good. So at Bellevue Elementary School, we need to replace the entire roof. And so that's $1.2 million. At Christiansburg Elementary School, we need to address areas A1, 2, 3, 4, and B. Pretty much the yellow, the red, mustard, and yellow need to be replaced. That's $1.1 million. At Montgomery Central, I didn't put all of the pictures for you, but at Montgomery Central, we need to replace 4 sections of roof for $820,000. And at Shawsville Middle School, we need to install the fascia, I always say it wrong, metal around the kitchen roof exterior, and so that's $5,000. So our total roofing needs are a little over $3 million. Our HVAC priorities you can see listed in our buildings. Cripps Elementary School needs the heat pump units to be replaced. We have done everything that we can with those units. Our team works tirelessly to keep them up to date, but I don't think we can even get the parts that we need anymore. Our team has put in a really good effort with those, but they are at the end of their life. Christiansburg Elementary School, the annex HVAC needs to be installed. Auburn Elementary School, there needs to be repair to the cooling tower. At Bellevue Elementary School, we need to replace the HVAC over the media center and the kindergarten rooftop air handlers. And at Harding Avenue, we need to replace 6 rooftop units. And so our total HVAC needs are $3.4 million. As building exterior priorities, we looked at those things that are outside of the building that need to be addressed, but are a part of the building. And so at Bellevue, we need to look at the kitchen loading dock. That's where our school nutrition materials and supplies are brought in, and that is the surface is not a safe surface at this time. It's crumbling. And so we really need to repair that again with Bellevue just having been renovated. This is certainly something that we need to make sure our staff are safe out there. At Eastmont Elementary School, we need to repair the leaking through the wall flashing at the roof level walls. And so those building exterior needs are $289,000. Our ground priorities. So at Shawsville Middle School, we need to repair concrete steps and sidewalk at the annex building. At Auburn Elementary School, parking lot and access road paving and seal coat. They say they've patched that about as much as it can get patched, as well as at Shawsville. Eastmont High School, the athletic track needs to be replaced. And then at our high schools, we need to install sprinklers at the baseball and softball fields. The reason this was identified as a priority need for those is because we want to make sure that we have the same, that some schools we have the sprinklers on baseball and not softball, and some places are on softball and not baseball. And so we need to be consistent with providing for our athletes. Plumbing priorities, Montgomery Central, the water lines need to be replaced. And electrical priorities, Eastmont High School, replacing the lighting controller for the auditorium. This is an extracurricular need, but it is also a class need. We have students who take theater, and they're not able to utilize the lights at the same time as the lights within the building, and so we need to replace those so that they can have a productive learning environment. What you see here is the prioritization, the ranking that the team put together, looking at safety, first. And so you see the ranking here within those priority projects. And again, the total estimated cost on the priority projects was $8.8 million. I wanted to provide an overview. This is the current renovation for Bellevue. So if you look on the right-hand side, that was the information I already shared with you. The information on the table on the left are those items that did not make it to the priority list, but that we feel should be addressed to walk away from the project saying it's finished. At the bottom, we've combined those two sets of needs together for you. So we do believe that we need to address playground and install a new playground for our students. We need to paint the exterior doors and windows. They currently are two different colors. And change the interior doors to match. Some doors have been replaced and some doors have not. And then again to the right of the list that we already discussed. In Christiansburg Elementary School, we need to address the parking area. We are shy of enough parking spaces. I believe we came up with a patch for now, but we need additional parking. When I first started learning about the project, we didn't have enough spots for the staff to park in. And so we worked over the summer to get additional parking in that school, but need to make sure that we have enough room for staff, visitors. Painting again the exterior doors and windows, and again replacing interior doors so that they match. The list to the right is the priority needs list from before, and so the total additional funds needed for Christiansburg Elementary School is $1.7 million. Christiansburg Primary School, there were no needs that were identified on the priority list, but we do need to paint that multi-purpose room. You know, we all call it the gymacafetorium or the cafegimatorium. Multi-purpose is where we'll go for that one, but we do need to paint that space. And so that's an additional $18,000. In the Operations Center, what you see to the right is a graphic of the Operations Center and our parking lot. And the red items you see are additional buildings that need to be built. And so when looking at this project, there are certain things that we must have in place. So we need an equipment storage shed. We need somewhere, what that means is we need somewhere to store our heavy equipment. And so we can't leave that out. Our permit, one, doesn't allow us just to leave things out. But also we need to make sure to maintain the equipment that we have. And so we are currently storing those things at a rented space. The maintenance building, which is going to be where our individuals are working, they're like bays. And then we also are mandated to have fire-rated tire storage. The fire-rated tire storage is on the right side of the building there. You can see the large green and the small green kind of in between there. There's a red spot. Bus charging stations for our 4 stations there within that building. In addition, we need to install an outdoor basketball court. The basketball court was removed because we took the gym for the bus garage. And so the students that attend Montgomery Central need some place for activity. I do want to introduce another individual to you. Lee, if you'd stand up. There you go. That's Miss Lee Walker, and she's one of our project managers, and she's the lead on the Operations Center project. I introduced to you just a minute ago, Jay Smelser, and he is the lead on Bellevue and Christiansburg Primary as well. Did I miss anybody? Let's see. John Sutton, if you'd stand up real quick. John just does about everything, and so he's involved in all of our projects across our schools. And then I'd like to introduce to you Chris. Mr. Chris Lowe is our new Director of Facilities, and so he, luckily for him, joined us on the day we made this presentation to our school board. So we're happy he keeps coming back after that day. And so ranking that list of current renovation needs, you can see here our priority ranking, and that's estimated at $1.2 million. The last slide that you'll see here is a duplicate of the first slide. And so essentially it's the same exact funds that you saw that were available and the total funds on the bottom. The new table is the table on the bottom to the right. And so that provides the information about our priority needs and our current construction project needs, which total $10 million. you see that the total undesignated funds that we have available at this time is a little over $9 million. And so the next steps that our board set forward for us were to work to first address our safety needs as quickly as we possibly can. Then our team began work as soon as this presentation was done to begin to look at which projects might we be able to apply for under our CARES funding so that we could hopefully secure CARES funding for some of the more timely projects and free up the local funds to use on Christiansburg High School. And so that's what our finance and facilities team were working together on right now. And I would bet there's questions.
Well, I think we will just go around the room and see what questions our supervisors have and reserve the right to follow up with additional questions. Does that sound good? All right. We'll start off with Supervisor DeMotts.
Okay. I have just a few questions, and it might actually be questions that go to your staff in the back. I'll start with the roofing. I have the unfortunate knowledge of the challenges that flat roofs present. And so I just have a question from a preventative standpoint, a two-part question. One, are we installing any crickets on the roof to divert water? And are we, I'm making the assumption that some of the failures with the flat roofs are due to water pooling on the roof. And so I guess, are we doing anything to divert water, and are we addressing any type of plumbing or draining needs from those roofs?
I would gather that would be a question for me.
There you go.
Yes, the roofing systems that we have now, for example, Bellevue, the red areas that you see there, what has happened is over time, they were a built-up asphalt-type roof. Over time, that breaks down with the sun and UV light, cracks, leads to water penetration. That gets into the insulation areas, and that's what we did with the infrared scans that we had done. That shows us the wet areas of insulation. What we will do is, what we will do is we will go in, the roofing companies will go in, they will tear off all of the old roofing system in the red. The parts that are in the yellow, they will only need to have some repairs done to them and then what they call retard. It's a flow method that they put new tar on. They remove the gravel, put new tar on. There will be new crickets put in. There's also scuppers and different things like that on a new area when we get to that point after the new insulation, vapor barrier, and insulation's put on. We're going back with the EPDM roof material, which is a rubberized type membrane over it. We're not going to be using a built-up because we can get a really good lifespan out of the EPDM type material at a significantly lower price than a traditional built-up tar roofing system.
Sounds like a lot of fun. I do not envy the size of the roof work that you're having to do with those. And then I had a parent reach out to me specifically about Kipps Elementary School, so I'm happy to see that that was number 3 on your priority list. Their concerns, and I promised I would just bring them up and mention them, was that due to the lack of HVAC, the windows are having to be kept open during the day. And so I just wanted to, I'm sure all of you are aware, but I promised that I would say that. I've got the slides that you guys have presented. They were emailed to us. Is it possible to extract just the PDF of the priority rankings for the schools and send us that? And then my final question is related to the operations center and the 2 additional buildings. Will that require zoning approval from the town, and if so, do we have it?
The zoning from the town's already been approved, and the location of the buildings have already been approved through the town.
Great. I'm very glad to hear that. I was really hoping that that would be a yes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor King.
Just have a few. On Bellevue, I'm still trying to figure out why when they went up to do the remodel, I mean, that'd be the first thing you look at. There's no use remodeling if the roof's no good.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I cannot speak for people that made decisions that I did not make, but what I can share is, as soon as I began working with our team, Mr. Smelser made me aware of his concerns related to the roof, and I can't give you an answer for why it wasn't addressed. I do believe it should have been addressed, and that's why I'm bringing it forward, is because I have the same view, you know. We need to look at roofs, we need to look at safety. I think that nice, beautiful things are wonderful, but we first have to start at the top of the building to keep the inside safe.
I have a little bit of information on that I can add to that. I spoke with the architect on that, and I came in kind of later in the project. I need to stand up because I have to see who I'm talking to. I spoke with the architect who designed the buildings, the renovations and the construction that we're doing. He said that originally that was thought of, but they were told that we would address that at a later date, which I understand at the time they were trying to get as much of the interior space and the addition built as they possibly could, and they were hoping when that was completed, or right when that was completing, that they would start on the roofing project. And that's what I was told by them. And I think that was probably, at the time, when they were dealing with the funds on how they could move them around and do what they needed to do with them, I guess that was the plan that they came up with. I wasn't involved in that. None of our team was at that time, but that's what I was told second and third hand. So.
Thank you.
So I think as a board member, I could speak to that because I was there for it. And it does, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it had to do with the fact that we had this budget of $35 million, and it's been a few years now, so somebody can maybe remind me on. I think it had to do with maybe some loans that had come up, and that was the limit of the money that we had. And we were trying to solve the Christiansburg Elementary School overcrowding issue, and the solution that the board settled on at the time was to try to do all three of these schools with renovations, build out classrooms, and solve the overcrowding issue. So I'm fairly certain that they looked at the roofs, which maybe at the time were maybe fair instead of poor or bad, and they said, well, hey, we can, for $35 million, we can do this, and then we'll essentially kick the can down the road on the roofing. Now, I don't think that specific of a decision ever came to us as a board, because I think I agree with you, Supervisor King, that your roof's the most important thing. You start there, right? But these sometimes, I mean, I think that, you know, when we do, I hate to keep using this term, but when we kick the can down the road sometimes on some of these renovations and building projects, you have to make decisions you don't necessarily want to make, and sometimes it works out, and other times I think it doesn't. And I think in this case, it's, you know, I would probably say this isn't working out as well as we would have liked, right? But thankfully, we have some funds to take care of the roofs before it gets worse.
So can I add a little bit to this? Because I'm very disturbed about how this has played out. That study was done in, I believe it was 2017. So folks were well aware that far back before we started renovations, that roof was critical. And I don't care how much room you want to get under the building. If the roof is not right, it should have been taken care of. And as Mr. Chewbacca said, that was not put in front of this board, that was an issue that needed to be taken care of when the renovations were put in front of us for us to approve. Again, cannot say why that did not happen, but for it not to happen, I can't sit here and say that was kicking the can down the road. No. As far as I'm concerned, you put every child and staff member and every parent who walked into that building, newly renovated, at risk because the roofs are critical. They have failed. There's a lot I could like to say about this, right? But to say we needed to see what we could do about overcrowding, that's true, but you take care of a roof. With the history that we've had in this county, you take care of a roof. That's all it is to it, and why that did not happen. And unfortunately, I can't get those answers now because folks are no longer with us.
And I don't believe we saw these pictures before. These are something that Ms. Whitaker unearthed in her research when she took over for the other assistant superintendent and started talking with the individuals who worked with that person. And they were not involved in any of the decision-making either.
Or planning, or anything. Raising questions and not being allowed to.
I will share one recommendation I made to the board as well, is as we're working, we're doing a master facilities plan study as well this year. That was supposed to be conducted last year, but was not. There was a project put together, I believe started the day I was appointed interim superintendent. And so this team worked very quickly once they were asked to, but they were not given the time needed to complete a real facilities study. So we are doing that this year. But the recommendation I made to the board as well is that we come up with standards based upon what we expect to see in renovations. In my thinking, things should outlive people. There should be systems and processes in place that whoever walks in is able to pick those up and then ensure that those are followed through. So that's a recommendation I've made to the board as well, and something that I would think that you would see in our master's facility plan coming forward, or what are the things that this board feels are important to address every time we have a project, and how are those prioritized.
And roofs should be the number one.
One more question. The Eastmont Elementary School, the fire suppression. I believe that's been going on since 2019 is what I was told.
Yes, Mr. Hash, can you speak to that?
Yes, while the system it's functional, we noted changes in the static pressure that has an effect on, or has a reduction on the effectiveness of the sprinkler system. So we are working on solutions to bring it back to what it should have been at the design levels. But it was noted in 2019 was when we started seeing the changes in that static pressure.
Yeah, I know you got 92 going in. What's your static pressure on it now?
We looked at it today at the riser. I believe we were at 105, and that fluctuates some with temperature, of course. But we need, the design static pressure is 125. Is a minimum that we need.
Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit to this conversation about the maintenance. And I know it's nobody here's fault, but I remember a meeting that we were having and some of the school administration was at. And we, Mr. Tuck and specifically went into detail with the administration and saying we need to stay on top of the maintenance. Kipps Elementary, the HVAC system was one of the things that was mentioned at that time, and I think that's right around that 2017 that you're talking about. And I think some of the roofs were mentioned as needing to be addressed soon at that time. So I don't know how or why that fell through the cracks for so long, but that's a shame. But anyway, so to the gentleman back in the corner, you said that you wouldn't need as much work on the yellow parts of the roof. So with what they do to that part of the roof, how will that compare in the longevity of life compared to the new roof?
What will happen is the sections that are in the yellow, they will go in, and what they do is they remove the stone that's currently there. They go in with a hot tar application after they fix the curbing and any type of gutters or anything that they have around equipment and everything else. And then they reapply the gravel area. What the gravel does, it protects the tar from UV lights. It's its only purpose, really. Once that is done, its warranty will be the same as the roofing material that we have. the new system that we're putting on. So they'll both be kind of concurrent at that time. And then when we do have to, later on down the road in 20 years or so, have to do some replacements on the built-up sections, in the yellow sections, we would go back with the EPDM at that time. Was what I would recommend.
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. Supervisor Fidzikowski?
Yeah, I don't think we can pile on enough about the roofs. When we talked about these three schools and we talked about remodeling, we kind of understood that when you remodel, it's done, it's finished. Everything is like brand new again, and we start over. My big question, I guess, would be, what changes have you implemented so that this information is communicated amongst every department? I mean, I would think every department would know, especially if you're a principal of a school, you would know that your school needs a roof, and nobody's talking about it while they're renovating it. That would be a good time to bring it up. Because when you throw these numbers at us, I don't know where that money's coming from. So that's what I would like to know. What changes have you implemented?
Sure. You know, I think if you spoke to our team, you'd say things are very different today than what they had been. The first change was bringing the individuals who have the knowledge into the same room and having them sit down and have conversations. Our team, the individuals you've been hearing from tonight, we're not brought together in meetings to have discussions. We meet once a week for at least 2 hours to talk about our current needs, our projects, where we are, and I get an update from them every single week on that. In addition, we have included communicating with our principals, one, about these things, to make sure they were aware. We want to make sure they know before it went out to the public. But then also developed, when we have project teams, we have to make sure to include both sides of the house. We cannot be divided and have an instructional side and an operational side. We depend upon each other. And so we have said that moving forward, we have to have the right people. Number one, you have to have a team. Nobody can make these kind of decisions in a silo. And so bringing the right people to the table and ensuring that we have the experts with that field knowledge, as well as the individuals that know what it takes in a school, because schools operate a little bit differently than other organizations. And so bringing the people who can think about the children and the staff's perspective to the table. So those were the immediate things that have happened. But again, in terms of long-term, it's been my recommendation to the board that we put into place in our facilities plan specific standards that we should uphold and have timelines and schedules for when those things are reviewed. You know, this is public information, and so we need to be bringing this information forward and sharing it. And so setting those protocols into place is, for me, the way the long-term is going to happen, is to have those standards. And so that facilities plan that we're working on for this year will include those components. I feel like it's like November already, but it's still just barely September. But, you know, as soon as we are able to, we will get started on that process. I just have not been able to move the team towards that goal until we get some more staff on board.
Can I respond to that also, Supervisor Fidzikowski?
It's Fidzikowski.
Fidzikowski, I'm sorry. I grew up with somebody named Fidzikowski, so sorry. So I would just look at that, I'm going to answer that in a little bigger picture, is that changes is in leadership. And it has to come from the top down, and Annie has done a terrific job in her interim role of stepping in and being a leader. And as we go forward and have a new superintendent who will continue to provide that kind of leadership, that's what's necessary. People who are leaders and who are open communicators and people who share information and who are willing to go in there and really, you know, find out what's going on, and to work as mentors for their teams and allow them to be part of the decision-making process. That's the changes we're going through right now that I think are ultimately going to make a very big difference for us.
My last question is on Shawsville Elementary. Did you all had a meeting today with the vendors or whoever is going to make these repairs?
Yes, we had a joint meeting with PSA, Chuck Campbell. We also met with Johnson Controls to discuss some solutions, and I think we've come to a direction that we're going to pursue. We'll need to work with some engineers in order to address it at this point.
Was the state fire marshal there at that meeting?
He was not, but we have had conversations with him. I spoke to him this afternoon and filled him in on the direction where we're going, and I think he's comfortable with that for right now.
Okay, it's my understanding he had some good suggestions to make. I don't know if they would work out in this situation, but it sounded like he had some, I think 30 years of experience. So it's somebody you want to listen to. But.
Yeah, absolutely. And we discussed those at our meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
I'll
there's a
take care.
noise we keep hearing. If somebody could shut off their phone.
My apologies. I took my phone off. Sorry.
Maybe you could take it out in the hallway and make sure you got it down, and then you can come back in. It's also going to affect the audio on the people for the live stream.
Supervisor Bone.
Getting back to the roof, were any of you privy to the original roof reports that were delayed? Did any of you see any of those roof reports before the Christiansburg Strand?
I'll answer for them if you don't mind. They had seen those. Some individuals had shared their thoughts, but were not given their considerations and opinions were not put into place.
Is there any kind of whistleblowing, something,
Yeah,
school level?
we do have, it's a federal law that you have a whistleblower. We do have whistleblower policy. We also have our harassment discrimination, any of those that would protect someone. We certainly can do a better job communicating the things that are available to staff members, but we do have those policies in place.
Okay. So we can have all the policies in the world, but if we have folks who don't feel comfortable because they have been told, be quiet, I'm not going to candy coat this, right? We have to have systems in place where employees have trust that if there are things they bring forward, there will not be retribution. They will not have to fear for their jobs because they want information that needs to be shared to be shared. And this is what was not happening. These folks were not allowed to do their jobs. And it's sad that some of them didn't even sit in the same room with each other. With all the projects and things that we have going on in this county, we're not even allowed to meet. So when you talk about working in a silo, that's exactly what was going on. So when Annie came on board and started pulling people together to be able to piece together what has been going on, what has not been going on. So let's just, I don't want to take your time, but so at Shawsville Middle School, there are bats. We went into more detail in our meeting about the issues that were going on, but there are bats that have to be caught, which means if there's bat, there's guano. And that situation is over top the kitchen. And no one thought that that was something that needed to be taken care of as soon as it was found. Yeah.
Not no one.
Yeah. Right.
No, there are people who
Right, there
thought
are
it was.
people.
The
Yeah.
decision makers didn't.
Right. That sprinkler system, I have not been able to sleep ever since I got knowledge of that, because we don't know what may happen, that the pressure is not right when it is needed. The safety panels in these other buildings related to the fire systems, 15,000, 30,000, 20,000. Come on. Those are things that should have been addressed as soon as we realize can't fix it anymore, can't get the parts, we need to replace it. You know, I'm just so, I can't even say upset, furious that we have to face this community and let them know what has happened with the facilities. It's bad enough when we're saying we've got to do something because we're overcrowded, but to ignore the safety issues, to say we're overcrowded, no. That should never, ever happen. Annie, you all just have no idea how she has worked to pull things together and then say, okay, we have to put this out there. We have to make sure these reports are public because we are a public body. We answer to this community, and things will change. Things have changed, and they will change. And our employees, I would hate to hear that any employee going forward does not feel comfortable coming to a board member, quite frankly, even you all, to say, hey, there's something you need to know.
And I want to echo that. Any school employees, even though they shouldn't come to me, are welcome to come to me, as well as any county employees are welcome to come to me if there are any issues that should be discussed, and I will keep your confidentiality. So,
I'd like to add one more thing to that. I have, for the last 3 years, spoken about the fact that our staff was not comfortable in talking to leadership. I have said it, I can't tell you how many board meetings that I talked about the concern for retribution that our staff had. Most people thought I was talking only about teachers, but I never said that. Our staff was very concerned for their jobs. And this goes beyond just the things we're talking about today. A lot of our staff was very concerned. So that is something that it's taken a while for us all to understand, but I think we do now.
I do want to thank the staff. Well, I'd like to apologize to the staff for having to put up with that. But I'm very grateful that you did, so that we could come to a place that's where we are. And it seems to me that you've got a great plan. You all have got a great plan to move forward. You know, part of the responsibility of the staff, administration, is to give the board all of the relevant information so they can make all of the relevant decisions, right? That clearly doesn't look like it was happening. But it's the board's responsibility that if you're not getting the information that you want, to be asking and demanding that information from your staff and administration. So it's a two-way street, and it's rarely easy. So keep up your good work. I'm just going to go from the top. So in one of your first slides, you did not include the cost of the sports fields that were part of the whole school at CHS. Was that $5 million? Was that?
So we're going to do a CHS presentation in
Okay.
just a minute.
Okay.
Yep.
Also, in that earlier slide, you said fiscal year '24 was the same $2.5 million, but we grow every year. So you don't put in any estimate?
I did not want to, no, I did not.
Okay.
I did not want to project out. You know, we certainly are always thankful to have the funds, but I did not, you know, Katie and I, Ms. Miano and I worked together on this and just felt that it was appropriate to leave it at that place because we felt confident that that would be an amount that we could depend upon.
Could someone explain what CSLFRF is?
I cannot explain the letters, but I can explain the concept.
Yeah, that's fine.
So essentially, it's funds that were given through COVID to address air quality.
Federal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Katie, is there a way you want me to say that differently? Okay.
I have no idea what a wire fault is, other than it's broken or it skips or something. Is that true?
Yes, we've got an issue with it's a device, an alarm device that's in a vault that basically, it's a tamper switch. So it tells you if someone's messed with or has adjusted the valve to the supply side. And
I gotcha, that's enough.
yeah, sorry.
So, your HVAC list, as well as your grounds list, don't have like color priorities. You know what I mean? Like your roofs were colored and you could tell it's fair versus, you know, I know that our board has seen a lot of this stuff before. Now, we might not have seen the price tags of all of this because we really hadn't. In a lot of instances, we would see a list, right? So, you know, your HVAC grounds and, you know, we don't know, we can't tell how vital those things are.
So I'm not sure that they provide it that way. The roofing reports, that's how we receive them. So that when they give us a roof inspection, it color codes those for us. But in terms of our priority list was where we provided for you kind of where we felt those fell within those needs. So is there anything different you want to say about the HVAC, John?
So I was alarmed to look at this list and see fire alarm systems more than halfway down the list. Can you kind of talk to that? I mean, to me, that's safety, and sure, HVAC is important, but how is that prioritized that way?
Sure.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So, as we're going through, so we have done in the past couple of years fire alarm system replacements. The systems that we have are functional. They are tested annually. The devices work. The fire alarm panel does what it's supposed to do in regards to reporting, as it was designed under the code that it was designed under. So those systems are functional. It's just that the parts, if we were to have a failure of a panel, we would have difficulty finding parts, or they may not be available. That's why they're on the priorities list, but they're not at the top because the systems themselves are functional.
So what you didn't do was tell us that the 3 elementary schools and primary school, what you're saying is that the safety or the roof and the priorities for those schools to get them all done, those tasks weren't included in the original budget.
Correct.
And have you spent every penny of the original budget on all those schools?
Katie she was pulling those numbers, but we're pretty close on it.
Okay.
Katie, you want to?
So I think Chair Blevins had asked for the amount spent on each project. So break it down between the amount spent, the amount we still have encumbered. I believe I have a balance as well. On all 3 projects to date, we've spent $30.7 million. We currently have encumbered to finish those projects $5.4 million for a total of $36.1. And we have roughly $1.2 million that's unencumbered as of right now.
Thank you. The bus charging stations at the operations center, I seem to recall that that grants were gonna be gotten for those. Is that true?
Sorry. So Lee is working on our bus charges.
So the grants covered the equipment, the actual charging stations and dispensers, but we need to install the conduit and the wiring to connect the charging stations.
And the conduit costs how much?
That was an estimate, was 100,000.
Yeah, so what she's saying is we secured the pieces, but in renovating that project, if you'll remember, we're repaving all of those pieces, and we have to do, our water drain, stormwater drainage and all of that. The plan, they had previously planned to get the equipment, but there was no plan to ensure that we were getting the electricity and the items needed for the buses to be stored. And so what we have done is halted that paving of that part, because there's no point in paving where buildings are going to go or paving where we need to put electrical lines. And so we have stopped so that we can make sure that we're not wasting our money by ripping something up we just did.
Do you have a little pointer or a laser on your thing? Can you point where those charging stations are supposed to be?
I don't know. Yes, this is the building here where the bus garage is.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be inside that building there, correct? Or right up along the wall?
You see like a thin strip between the two parking lots?
Oh, that's right there.
No, coming perpendicular to that?
Down.
Yeah, see that, go to your left. See that strip right there?
Uh-huh.
So there'll
Oh,
be
okay.
certain spots right there designated for the electric buses, and so there'll be concrete pads with the stations installed there.
And where's the electricity coming from?
It comes from in Shelton Street. There's a power pole on Shelton Street.
And that costs $150,000 to get it from Shelton Street to those.
We actually don't have a quote. We're working with an electrical engineer.
So as I shared, we've
It's
been
an
working
estimate?
real quickly. So some are estimates and some are
I
quotes.
see what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
I do want to note, while we're talking about charging stations, Ms. Walker, will you tell them about the other ones that'll be out in our communities?
So we originally, we don't have the charging stations yet for the parking lot. They're on order, but we do have 4 wall mount charging stations that we're in the process of installing at Christiansburg Middle School, Eastmont High School, and Price's Fork Elementary School. And we're working with AP and with our electrician to install those probably within the next 4 to 6 weeks. We should have those in and ready to be used. We also have one currently at the old bus garage in Cambria that's functional right now.
One last question. A car can't just pull up and use those, right?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Well, thanks to my other supervisors, a lot of my questions have been addressed, but I would like to say a few things. First of all, I want to go back to the video because I actually taught summer school years ago at CPS and CES. You wouldn't even recognize what a great job. I realize the roofs are a problem, but what a great job inside. And Bellevue, I've been to many in-services and meetings there. I can't even believe the change. And you could see how excited the staff and the students were to come. I'm sorry that the roof thing, and I will just say this as a historian around here, roofs have always been a problem in Montgomery County Public Schools. And it goes back to Supervisor DeMott's. They were flat. I mean, I remember teaching at Harding Avenue with a trash can on my desk when it rained. I mean, yeah, they've always been a problem. And there's something that we really have to recognize and invest in, because when we build, it doesn't matter if it's a school or a government building, this is an investment of our taxpayers' money. And you don't just invest the money and not maintain. It's like you don't buy a car and you don't and not maintain it. You don't buy a house and not maintain it. You have to maintain it, and it costs money. So that's been one of the problems throughout history between, the Board of Supervisors trying to provide enough money to maintain, government buildings, including schools. And so what I'd like to say is I'd like to compliment Dr. Whitaker and this team of people that you have pulled together in such a short amount of time, and you have dug through all of this information, or trying to get the information, and then providing it to us, to the public, in a transparent manner. I think it's critically important. I think our folks need to understand the investments that they've made in their schools and you know, what still needs to happen. I'm really concerned, like some of my other board members, to me, the safety is first. The safety for our students and staff and community members and parents that go in and out of our schools. So I'm really glad that you were able to come up with these priorities and recommendations. And so I'm glad that you're planning. And I guess that the next thing will be to see how it all sort of falls out and how you get it done and what you might need further from us. But thank you for all your hard work.
My thoughts and feelings are along the lines of School Board Member Franklin. I'm furious. I'm very disappointed. I think all of us are disappointed to hear of these emergency critical condition needs. I'm glad to hear that it is all coming out, everything, and I encourage that if there's anything else that needs to come out, it needs to be transparent so we have everybody on the same page working together. I do have quite a few questions here, so please forgive me if I get a little out of order on some of these things. But safety is first and foremost. This community, this county, saw what happened with Blacksburg High School with a roof. I would think that a roof would never get in a critical condition where we would have a repeat of something like that happening. So I am appreciative of the planning of your team that's coming forward to address those needs. I'd like to hear a little bit more of the safeguards to ensure that we are going to have open communication, because what I am hearing is a breakdown, misinformation, lack of information communication, leadership. When I'm hearing that employees won't want to come forward because they're scared of their job, they're scared or told not to talk to the board. We talk about leadership from the top down. The school board, you are at the top. And it's very unfortunate that you are not giving all of the information to know decisions to be made. When I campaigned in 2019, I campaigned on these 3 schools, did tours where there were leaks and roof problems. So I know that that was an issue. Never in my wildest dreams would I think when we're going to spend $33.5 million on renovations for 3 schools, when that was a huge debate back then, whether we're going to build new schools and how we're going to fund this and overcrowding. Never in my wildest dreams would I think you wouldn't make sure the roof, the foundation, is secured first. That is a safety issue. And I know everyone on this board, both boards, realizes that, and we want to make sure that our children stay safe. But then to hear that there are sprinkler issues with pressure. I listened to that first presentation for the school board. Ms. Franklin, you said, are you telling, quote, paraphrase, are you telling me that if there was a fire, those sprinklers were ineffective, weren't working, wouldn't put the fire out, save the kids' lives or the building? I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. When we're talking about over $200,000 to address some of these issues, that should have been a priority number 1. And to hear that you've heard about it from 2016, there is a complete disconnect. So I want to move forward to make sure we're ensured that the school board also is, you know, I don't know what your protocol was before, but obviously there's been a great breakdown in leadership and protocol, that you have a disconnect, that your own employee that knows something is not right and is fearful to come tell a school board member, or only tell one whoever supervisor, and not that information be shared. There is a total disconnect there.
I don't disagree with you, and I think we all know that, and I appreciate your concern. I think all of us are very concerned also, and I don't think you need to tell us that there is a breakdown. I think if anybody, I think everybody gets the drift that a lot of changes have happened in this past year. And there's reasons changes have happened. And we can only do so much, so fast, to try to make changes and make a difference. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And it takes sometimes unearthing of information that you didn't know about to make it happen. I think everybody on the board, had we known any of this information, would have dealt with it much differently. But, and it's taken time to realize that there were some real leadership issues. So, I mean, I appreciate how angry you are, because I guess I've been this angry for several years. I've been angry since I've been on the school board, basically. And I get it. But sometimes it takes time to figure out exactly what's going on. So I don't mean to interrupt, but I do want to make it clear. I kind of feel like I'm getting lectured, and I think we're all kind of, we know, we get it.
Well, and if I may, I've been on the board 16 years, and there's always been a critical list. There's always been things that emergency need to be fixed. This isn't just something that all of a sudden happened. Now, the roofs, yeah, in 2 buildings. 1, no. 2 of them, which is too much, and I understand. But when we talk safety, anybody who went through CPS, what a big safety hazard. The pictures and the video, for those who haven't been in CPS, probably thought, oh, we'll paint and we'll this and that. No, there were no walls. When I went to my granddaughter's Valentine's Day party, when she was there, they said, go down to that bulletin board, take a left to the next bulletin board. Go. What a safety hazard. If we want to talk about safety, I mean, somebody could have come into that school and just wiped everybody out. There's not a wall anywhere. So we did fix that. And when you're on a limit, not to make excuses on things that should have been fixed, but when you've got a limited amount of money, and we had 3 schools to renovate, which doesn't fix it all. It just fixes some of it. They weren't new schools. They were renovated. And, so you take things and you try to do the best you can with what money you have. Now, that doesn't excuse what happened with the roof, and I understand on 2 of the buildings. But I agree. Like I said, for 16 years, we've always had a critical list. There's always been things fixed, and unless I misunderstood, I don't think that the sprinkler system wouldn't work. It was just getting to the situation that it needed to be maintained. But I don't think that it was said that it wouldn't work.
No, he didn't.
Right.
He did not say it wouldn't work at all.
Yeah, that it's still workable.
Okay, so Jamie, the pressure is low.
I understand.
The system is needed.
I understand.
And they only spray this much, and they should be spraying this much.
Right.
That's a huge issue.
Oh, I understand it's a huge issue, but I do think, but it made it sound like it wouldn't work at all, and I don't think we want our public to think that it wouldn't work at all. So even though it's emergency and needs to be fixed. But like I said, the 16 years I've been on the board, it's always been critical needs. You all know that. There's always a critical need list. But the things we have done in these buildings, opposed to the horrificness of the roofs, we've got some good renovations that have taken place that are going to be great things for our students in those buildings, especially CPS, that they have walls now and rooms and to help their educational, abilities. So.
Right.
Thank you.
Sherry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just a couple of years ago, I made a public statement to our employees because I was repeatedly hearing, don't use my name, I'm scared of retribution, and I publicly said at one of our meetings, if there is anyone who feels that way, please come talk to me and it will be addressed. So, yeah, this was bigger than what we even thought it was, when it is affecting some of our senior staff. It's much bigger. And the video, it was wonderful. What we've done to those buildings to make it a better environment for students is wonderful, and we're going to celebrate that for many, many years. But to not want to talk about what has happened with these roofs and these systems that are huge safety issues, so that we don't repeat it and that we have things in place so it is not repeated. It's a conversation we have to have. It's a very frank, honest, public conversation that we have to make sure that the community understands we do value their safety.
Thank you. And the video, it was great to see all the kids and the smiling faces, and I know that you have made renovations. The point is just that, as Ms. Franklin said, we need to make sure we get the foundation and the safety concerns addressed first. Going back to Dr. Whitaker, now that you stepped into this, the assistant superintendent, I guess, for operations part of it, you've talked about your team and you've introduced several of the team members. Who was in our last joint meeting, we were given a presentation and there were team members and stakeholders there. Did that team just dissolve, or in the beginning with the overall process from October, this board was presented at a joint meeting, stakeholders, team members that also included teachers. So I'm not sure where that is all dissolved, or was there a breakdown? Just on trying to get a timeline.
What presentation in October, just to help
It
me?
was the joint school board and board of supervisors meeting from October the 19th, and it was an overall process of,
21?
yes, ma'am, 2021.
Are you speaking about Mr. France and Mr. Krantz facility study? Is that what you're asking about?
It was a joint meeting.
I think it was Mr. Krantz, and then might have been maybe Josh, the architect?
Well,
It was the October 19th, 2021. It was our joint meeting, and we were given just an overall process presentation. We could probably bring it up on board docs later to look at it. I'm just curious, and you can get back with me to look that up, but just curious that it gave us some bullet points of the team that was together, and it was what I'm hearing now, that there was not really team members.
No.
I think what you're speaking about was how I had said that there was a master facilities plan in the works. That may be it?
She's saying, actually, in October, I'm going back to the meeting.
Yeah, I think this was a meeting where the process as to how involvement was happening and input was being gathered about CHS from the community and folks. Yeah, so in the very beginning,
Yes, so
before
correct.
they start doing the architectural
here it is.
drawings
Okay,
and stuff.
I got it up.
Yeah.
So the development of the design, meetings with the district.
For
leadership,
CHS.
The school leadership team.
That's how they came up with, they met with,
Academic team, the teachers, the counselors, the core committee. So I just was in which consist of members of each of the individual meetings. So I'm just trying to see where the breakdown.
So that's not a
that was
breakdown.
informational, that's not a breakdown.
That's informational. That's what
That
the
was, we wanted
design
to get
team.
information, what do people want in the
Oh,
schools?
so there
Yeah.
wasn't a team?
No.
There
No,
was,
the design team, met with community members, asked them to come to the school. We've done it for every renovation addition that we've done.
So
We've
there
met-
was-
We've had the teachers there, whoever wants to come and be a part of that, to give input on what they think is important for that school.
So there was never a team that,
Yes, I can address your question. So in terms of that what they're referencing is how we got the input, what would people like in the school? And we do have a presentation to share on CHS. But to answer your question, were the individuals who are speaking tonight involved? The answer is no. When I stepped into the role and, very quickly started going, CHS is a huge project, and I need to get the people, to help me because I certainly am not a builder, and pulled our staff, and they had not been at the meetings, they had not been at the table, they were not in any way a part of teams that were working on those processes. So, that changed, as I said, very quickly. When I say we're meeting for 2 hours a week right now, that's now. But, I've been in this role for about 5 months and doing all three for, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 months, I'm not sure. But from that point, when I was asked to pick up those duties, they have been involved at every, we are in meetings, we're working with architects, we have the team at the table, we all meet together. And so from that point, we have had the team included, but they were not involved in CHS before that time.
Thank you for that clarification. So who in the beginning was part of the decision-making, just the prior administration? Is that for
What
for decisions
decision-making are you
for-
talking about?
What
Renovations.
specifically?
Like getting the architects, which one to select, because we sent that out for RFP? What
So,
decision-making are you
What I'm
asking?
trying just to, and I think this clarified, Dr. Witter clarified for that. So now you have a team in place of your staff that are helping with the Christiansburg and the renovations, and there was not a prior team in place.
Yes, the team was not operated, I continue to call it a team because that's how I feel. But that side was not necessarily operated in a team format. They were not regular meetings, there was not opportunities, everybody sitting together, brainstorming problems, things like that. Everybody was working on their thing, so it doesn't mean nobody was involved in those pieces, but there was not ever when they just sat down and worked together to address it.
I think we've made it clear that we realize that what was going on in the past might not have been the best way that things should have been done. And I appreciate your interest in delving into this, but I do think that for this particular meeting, getting so far into the weeds that we're doing right now, I would like to focus on the future and focus on what we're working on now, focus on all the work that Ms. Whitaker, she still has another presentation to do. We're already at 8:30. She hasn't even talked about CHS yet. And talk about the work we're doing as opposed to, if you have some particular concerns regarding what's happened in the past, then we can address those, I think, at a later time, but I don't think this is the right time to do that. Because there's also a lot of things we're not allowed to talk about either. And so I think that I would really appreciate if we could move forward and talk about where we're headed as opposed to where we were.
Okay. Going back on the $1.2 million, that's what's left from these 3 renovation projects, is that correct? That has not been spent or designated, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that's the number Ms. Miana gave you.
Okay, and is that amount included?
I do not believe,
No, that amount is not included in there. We say that we have the 1.2 remaining. There's always some contingency that's left to make sure that if something does come up, clearly a roof could be into contingency, but there could be other things that come up during the renovation process, and we may still have to encumber those funds for that.
and I appreciate you asking that question because those were, I should have thought to put them on there. They would certainly go back into this consideration and be put towards school projects 100%. And obviously, I think it's 1.2 on one of them's roof, we would absolutely spend it towards that, well, I would recommend, then I can't speak 100% for, but absolutely.
Thank you. And then on this, we were staying right here on this presentation, the $10 million that originally for the high school, which was originally thought that ESSER funds, is that the combination of the $8 million and this SC?
Yes, ma'am.
Those are the two?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. And then you have, and I know we're getting ready to go on to Christiansburg High School, but you're still estimating Christiansburg High School at $100 million, or are you just showing here that that's
That is our budget.
the budget?
Those are the funds that we have available for that project. It is well over that at this moment. We're working on not the renovations, but the revision to the plans. But the $100 million is what we have allocated for the project.
And we're open to any contributions.
And with this, with all of the renovations for those 3, except for the priorities roof that are not included, will that complete what originally, except for these things that we've added? That would complete the majority of the renovations, except for the priorities maybe?
Yes, I think that, there are other things that might be requested, such as, I think there was a sidewalk that was wanted to be between two areas. For this presentation, we really pulled out what are the things that we feel that, needed to be brought forward. So I wouldn't say there wouldn't be other things at some point, but we really tried to, bring forward those that are prioritized, that we felt we just have to do that. Or the project has to be completed. But I'm sure if you asked someone, they would say, hey, I think this piece should be done, or this piece should be done. But overall, yes, that's what we believe we need to do for the projects.
And just one last thing, on the operations center, the over 900,000, will that complete that center? That will complete everything?
Let me get to the slide before I quote you on numbers, because this one here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, let me make sure from the team they didn't see anything else we needed to address. Yep, they feel very confident that that will complete that project.
And do you know the total amount that was spent on that entire project, the operations center?
Yeah, give me just 1 second. Hold on, it's not on my sheet here, but Ms. Miano could get that for you, and we can come back to it.
That's
I
fine.
had all the other ones, but I didn't have that answer for you.
That's fine. And again, I realize there are challenges, and just like the school board, we just all need to, I know that there are challenges, so thank you all. Supervisor Bum?
Could someone specifically describe what would happen if there was a fire in that Ryerner school with the lower pressure water? Like if a fire happened tomorrow at noon, what would happen?
The sprinkler system would activate, and it is going to cover, if a smoke detector were to go off, or a duct detector were to signal for the sprinklers, they are going to activate, they are going to work. The issue is with the static pressure not being as high as was designed, that it is not going to be as effective as it is designed to be. But it will activate, and it will suppress the fire.
And I do want to let you know, we do have individuals who are dedicated to monitoring that right now until we can get that concern fixed. So who are really just walking the building, watching for safety and watching for that. So until such time at which we fix that, we will continue to have people who are doing that for us all the time.
So one thing is watching, the other is if it actually happens, you actually have the resources on site so that you, quote unquote, backfill the shortage, right? Do you have some kind of backup plan stuff on site? Like, let's get a fire truck over there, or a pump truck, right? I don't know what that is, but gosh forbid, I wouldn't want, the school to not be, the fire not be suppressed appropriately.
I thought there was somebody there every day.
So yes, there is some, she's saying, do we have like a water supply that could be used? And we do not have that.
Would that be necessary?
I don't believe so. We can confer with, we have to confer with the fire marshal if that's something that they think is necessary for them to be able to feel comfortable with the safety of the building. And I have faith and trust in the code official that if something like that were required or needed, that they would ask that from us. We do have, I believe, significant enough pressure at the fire hydrants, should we need a response from the fire department, that they should have adequate flow to be able to pump from the system to then suppress the fire further if we need that.
So the fire official didn't say that he was alarmed by this?
There were concerns, and that's why we have people on staff available to walk the building.
But he didn't say, oh, you
He
need
did not, no.
additional resources to, I gotcha, thank
The
you.
resources that are recommended is having or required is having our staff monitoring and dedicated to that. And then, of course, we're working as quickly as we can with PSA and our team to address that, and that'll stay in place until we rectify. But that, a recommendation to bring, some water supply there was not given to us.
I just have a quick question. It's for clarity's sake, and Ms. Miano might be the one that answers this. For the 1.2 unencumbered, that is probably somewhat encumbered by contingency funds just in case, what's the construction closing timeline for those projects? Are you looking at knowing the actual details of that the end of this year? Is there a longer closing process for school construction? When do you think you would know how much is left, like actually know that information?
I think most likely what will happen is there will be nothing left because we will spend it on these on these other projects. Truly, I think the goal was to bring forward to the board the information that they needed for us to make the decisions, and so we're going to spend it on the projects.
I asked that because there's about $1 million difference, and I don't want to assume that we have a 1.2 million extra dollars that we might not. If you need 9.1 or 10.1 or what have you, I would rather assume that what we have available is going to be available until I know if and when that money would ever be available, if you're following what I'm saying.
I really don't, I'm sorry.
No.
I really didn't.
I went everywhere. So you, on your list, there's undesignated dollars of 9.1 million, and then you have needs totaling over 10 million. So you have a difference of $900,000.
Sure.
I don't want to assume that there's an additional $1.2 million floating around if I don't know.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
You're saying you would like to see that amount added into this so that we can look at the total amount when we're addressing them?
No. I'm saying I wouldn't assume that that amount is not going to be needed for the projects until you close them.
Yes. That we would spend it on those projects?
Yes.
Yes.
Katie's looking at me with...
No, I was just going to say, I was making sure I was correct. As soon as the projects are complete and they've been through all the punch list items and everything is finalized, then at that point, we would know what our ending balances are in those projects, and we would bring that back to the school board to reappropriate to a different project.
Okay.
Any other follow-up questions? Good. Okay, then we'll move on.
Great. Well, Ms. Drake is bringing up for you. As a reminder, this presentation is one that we gave to our board at their last meeting. So what I want to note first is that, again, this is it 2 weeks old? The way time goes. This is about 2 weeks old, so there's been a lot of work done since that time, but I feel strongly that information needs to be brought to our board for consideration, and I haven't had an opportunity yet to update them on the work that the team has done towards Christiansburg High School planning. So the presentation you're seeing tonight is the exact presentation that was shown to our board, but I'll let you know kind of what we're doing and working on. Oops. So what you see before you is the project schedule, and so within this project schedule, you see our timeline at the top, and then our proposed schedule there at the bottom. And so what we're looking at is kind of we're not going to be done by 2024. And so you can see on the bottom that we have extended that timeline. We are still, if you look at the third column down where it says redesign of building site based on the decisions, we've extended that from September, October to November, and that's the place that we are currently within. The schematic design or the updated guaranteed maximum price, that's going to come to us in December. You'll see later that we've already gotten one price. We need to be very careful not to send it out too many times. And the reason for that is the subcontractors get a little leery if you ask them over and over and over to bid a project for you. So we wanted to make sure not to send it to them too many times. The numbers you'll see today did come to us from Branch. And then once we finish our revisions, we will send it to get our guaranteed maximum price. We believe that we will have that in December. Our construction documents will then be completed, our permitting, and then we move forward with starting our construction. We do anticipate the end of that project to be August 2025. What you're going to see here before you is a site plan, again, as presented to the school board on the 16th. You see the yellow is the existing buildings, so we have the main building there, and then we have our Friends Building where Corps Cadets is held down to the right side. And blue is what was the plan for the renovated space. Oh, I forgot I have a pointer. Yay. So this here, there you go. Miss Cass is going to pull up her teaching skills for us. There you go. You can see this section right here is actually a bridge. And so the renovation was going to come around because we have our mechanical systems back here. Our price tag on this building is over budget. And so the bridges is one of the first things that we have to address. This is extremely expensive. The idea was that the bridge was a bridge of classrooms, and the classrooms would go over and the vehicles would drive under so that the vehicles could get to the mechanical sections and to the loading docks. That is an extremely expensive component of the project, and we were going to be able to reduce our numbers dramatically by removing that bridge right there. You may remember, and it's not on this drawing, but at one point there had been discussion, if you see back here in the back, there had been discussion of making a big gym back here. To my understanding, it started smaller and then began to grow and grow, and was going to be almost 100,000 square feet. You can see the size of it in comparison to the existing building, which again is in yellow. That is no longer going to be a part of the project. You'll see as we move forward that we've moved an auxiliary gym down to this space that will connect to the existing gym and is much more affordable. We'll still provide absolutely wonderful space for our students. It'll match what we have in our other buildings. But also back here in the back where you had that space that was going to be a gym, this is the fence for our community. And so it would have been very close to their homes right there. It's also extremely steep in the grading in that back area. And so moving the auxiliary gym up here to the front allowed us to save a lot of money that in our work on the land that was going to need to be done. So again, this is what was shown to the board 2 weeks ago. Those plans are being renovated at this time, but just to give you an idea, the existing building again is here, this component. This would be the renovated space. The idea is to build the renovation first, the addition first. Students would stay in the original building until the addition was completed. Then students will move into the addition while the renovation is completed in the existing building.
Annie, could you, do you happen to know, or maybe one of your people knows, a question had been asked to me about why is this costing so much money? It's just a renovation. This is not just a renovation. This is not only a renovation, but it is also, we're building a whole entire new building. How many square feet is the new portion? Do you know?
In this drawing, I believe it is 133,000 additional square feet. Does that sound right, Jay?
He stepped out, I think.
Oh, anybody else?
He disappeared.
Yes. Yeah,
That sounds right.
I'm getting a thumbs up from multiple people. So I believe in this
That's
plan.
like the size of a small elementary school.
Yeah, it's huge.
Okay.
It will not end up being that big, again, because we're having to draw back. But in this drawing, that's about that size.
Thank you.
So then this would be looking kind of from above. You can see here, you would walk into the front door, sorry. There you go, thank you. Walk in through here, come into the open space. This is going to be your cafeteria, dining area, right when you walk in. This is the auxiliary gym. So you can see our existing gym is here. The auxiliary gym would be on the same level as the existing gym. You can actually open the doors so that it makes it a full track around, which is similar to our other schools. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail on where all the classrooms are and all of these things because it is changing. But the idea had been that, we were going to put classes, this is the bridge I spoke to you about, and then underneath it would have gone the vehicles. Our CTE wing, which is going to allow for public access, of course, safety and monitoring. We're going to have another exit here because we have our cosmetology students who see clients. We also have our child care classes where students come, are brought in by their parents for drop-off there. So then we would go down, and this is the main space. Again, there's not too much point in going to all where the classes are because things are changing. But this was the overall overview of the renovation as presented 2 weeks ago. To give you a view of the front, this is a drawing. This bottom part here that looks like the recessed area, that will definitely not be in the plan. We also will probably need to pull back on this as well. So it'll still give you a good view of what the front of the building is going to look like, but with some changes based upon the changes that we need to make in our model. This is the view that you would see if you were coming in with that Friends building behind you. And so this is what you would see out from the main road as you look over to Christiansburg High School. I have to say, I'm really excited. My daughter goes to Christiansburg High School, so I think this is just, it's so exciting to see the new life being breathed in. You can see on the second level, the glass. We will probably change some of this from ceiling to floor glass because it's cheaper to do what's called a curtain wall, which you see some other places here, where we have glass, lots of glass, but still it's bookended. That'll save us some money as well, but still make the view very beautiful for those coming by. In terms of the cost, again, for that drawing, the construction cost came in at 105.9. So that's for the site, building, equipment, general conditions, and our fees. Then we have our architecture design team fees. FF&E is our fixed furniture and equipment, so that means all of the things that go into the building. We do have planned to do as much as we can owner purchasing because we do receive different rates, being able to be tax exempt, and so the things that we can purchase, we will. And then we need to make sure to have a change order. So that's what Ms. Miana was speaking about a little earlier. You need to plan for the things you can't plan for. You don't necessarily know what's going to be under the ground till you get in it. And the land work is very expensive. And so we have $10 million for our change order allowance. That is an industry standard, and we want to make sure that we are planning with the dollar signs in mind. So the total that the project came in at is $128.1 million. I can tell you we have had lots of meetings since the 16th. Our team is working furiously on this. I got some new drawings last week, and so again, I need to share those with our board before I bring them forward, but do know that there has not been a stop. I would say, I looked at our architect the other day and said, have you slept in the last 10 days? Because I don't think you have. But they are working diligently. They are getting the information to us. Again, we have a team. We meet together. We discuss. We look at the project. We talk through, what is needed. We've looked at our program needs. The Field of Dreams you put things in. Well, we wanted to go back and say the focus is on education first. What do we need for our instructional spaces to be long-lasting, to plan for expansion, to plan for the growth of our community? And so those are our priorities right now, is looking at how do we make sure that we're planning for the future in mind, focusing on our instructional spaces. We still want to have an amazingly beautiful building, which I think that we will have, but looking at those needs to identify what changes we can make. I'm feeling really good about the progress. Some of the potential cost reductions that you could see are reducing the new construction classrooms, again, going over that L of the building of the new space, not going over the bridge. So it says reduce the size of the addition and eliminate the bridge. The hard part with that, and it's something that we've really been working through, is making sure kids have time to get to class. So if you can imagine the building here, if this was making it so kids in this class could get to CTE very quickly. When we cut off the walkthrough, it makes the time to get from here over very long. And so that really is one of the main pieces of planning that's been happening in the last few weeks, is working with the instructional team hand in hand with the operations team to say what really works. We say you can walk so fast over to your class and get there, but we need to make sure that all of the students would be able to get there in a timely way, that our students with disabilities are able to get to where they need to be. And so looking at that from the instructional lens is very important to us as well. So you can anticipate seeing this gone completely, this part of the L. Would be what I would foresee that you would see, is not having that space, but still making sure that our kids can get there between class exchange, have time to go to the restroom, get what they may need, and get to their next class. Reducing the front size of that entrance canopy, that was the picture that you saw in the beginning. We would still want to have a nice overhang to keep individuals out of the water, but pulling that back would save us some funds there. The window design that I spoke about, changing those up from glass from bottom to top to adding some curtain window back in. And then stacking the gym. So in the original drawings, the space below the new auxiliary gym had not been used. And so I'm really excited about the plans that we're moving forward with that, of using every space that's available to us and maximizing. That will allow us to cut back on the project without cutting back on the classes as much. Or not classes, but the spaces. And then investigating any other design change options. And what that means really is, if it's something we need to talk about, we're going to put it on the table and discuss it. So our team, again, is working very quickly, but trying to be very thorough. We have some new drawings to look at, but plan to get the building where we feel that it needs to be, and then put it back out to get the cost on it. Sorry, something got my throat. What questions do you have?
We'll go around the room. I'll start off with Supervisor King.
Thank you. How in the world did the architect, whoever, get this price so wrong?
Well, I think I can't answer for them, but what I can tell you is, what I think. I think one thing that has occurred is, since we've started planning, there has been a lot of inflation. So materials are costing 20, 30, 40% more than what they cost when we started. I also believe that the architect was doing what he was being asked to do in terms of the building and drawing, and he provides us an estimate, but it's really the contractors who tell us what the cost is going to be, once it goes out to them. I can't really tell you more, I can't really answer that better than I've had very pointed conversations in terms of the need and the desire for us to have accurate numbers, to have an accurate reflection. That this is, an exciting thing for our community, and we want to be excited and be able to move forward with the project, but we don't have any time to waste. We've got to get the numbers right, and we got to get moving forward.
Here several years ago when this first started, I know the Board of Supervisors and the school board had a meeting at Christiansburg High School. Citizens come up there and they said, this is what we like to have. Y'all done a wonderful presentation. Let them decide stuff. Are you planning on having another community meeting to tell them where you're going to cut and why?
So, I think we certainly will. The board has not expressed, at what point they want to do that, but it is certainly a conversation. We're not quite there yet, but we will absolutely, share the drawings and all of those things. It is the community's building.
That's all.
Supervisor Shepherd.
So did I understand you right? You do have the new drawings at this time?
I have a part of them, so we're still kind of working. They don't look quite as good because we don't put a ton of time into drawing every single thing out till we flesh it. But we had a meeting, I don't even know when the days are, Wednesday or Thursday, and so I haven't had a chance today to review what's come through. But they're working around the clock on it.
Right. So you don't have any idea when they will be ready?
No, I don't want to give you a date. I don't like to.
That's fine.
Just pick things, I'd rather give the answers I'm sure of.
That's all I have.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Yes.
I've never been involved in a building project like this either, so I was just curious. I think when it was proposed to do these changes to the high school, I think a lot of departments were involved in that, and everybody put in their wish list. And I guess my question would be, now that you're having to scale back, are you including them in what's going to happen to some of the space they thought they were going to get?
So the short answer on that is just honestly, no. At this point, we have not had the time to do that. We're moving as quickly as we can. We got the numbers, we brought them forward to our board and are working on the changes that need to happen. What I can say is we are trying to do everything that we can to honor what those requests were. There were some things that were just extra. And so the things that weren't programmatic needs that somebody requested, we certainly need to evaluate. But the goal of keeping as much of it as we can, but having to cut back that cost is, we'll have to make some decisions.
And I don't think that's rare that happens. I mean, when we built Blacksburg High School, there was a schematic that was going to have it be much larger than it is. We had to cut back, we were supposed to tremendously on that. We had to cut the size of the auditorium, couldn't even fit all the students. We had to cut back on classroom size. We had to cut back on the number of student occupancy, the maximum occupancy. So, I mean, that happens. Also, I don't think anybody in this room, well, maybe we could have expected inflation after the pandemic, but I don't think anybody expected that, the price of goods would go up like 30% and that the types of difficulty we're having getting construction, what we need for construction. So, I think that, as Annie said, we're still making sure that we are honoring what the priority items, which are classroom space and instructional space and what is really important for our students. Are we going to have to maybe cut back on some of the more frivolous type things like big giant windows? Maybe you have to cut back a little bit. One of the things people wanted was a lot of light. There's still going to be a lot of light. Maybe it's not going to be full windows, ceiling to floor for 2 floors, but there still will be a significant amount of light. The bridge piece would have been nice, but it's not a necessity. We can still work to include the same amount of classroom space, but maybe at a less cost. So I think that we're trying very hard to keep to what people were looking for, but maybe it won't be quite the Taj Mahal. It'll be more like, I don't know, Buckingham Palace? How about just a school? Right.
Supervisor Bone.
No Buckingham Palace.
I couldn't think of anything else, sorry.
When I grew up, my high school was in a U, and I grew up in upstate New York where it's really cold, So we had a breezeway between the 2 L's, and so in the cold parts of winter, we'd be wearing our coats between buildings. But during warmer months, we'd be going from the end of the L on one side to the English wing on the other side through the parking lots. So I hope that there's going to be some kind of walkways that the students can go from the new wing to the back wing in warm months outside.
So our goal, remember that it's a loading bay over there. There's cars and trucks coming
Right.
through. So our plan is not to have students walking through an area where there are vehicles going. It is to make the building so that they can get from place to place in a time that makes sense, and so that they wouldn't need to go outside.
In my high school, there was a big parking lot in the back. I mean, cars would go, but no cars were allowed to go when classes broke. So the auxiliary gym with the present gym, does that include a full-size indoor track?
No. No, the indoor track, the full-size indoor track is not a realistic option.
Does it then become a 3/4 of an indoor track or something like that? I don't know,
I don't remember the space on it, but it's not anywhere.
just a double gym, okay.
It's just more of a walking path where you can walk around the loop.
Not like Christiansburg Rec Center.
No.
Okay, I'm asking the questions, I don't
Well,
know the answer
yeah.
to the questions, thank you. So my university had a gym that was on the second floor and a track elevated from the gym. Wasn't most ideal, but it worked. So good luck in trying to figure out how to use all your space, but. We did know about materials inflation. We were asking those questions to the architects. They have to be in contact with their contractor costs in order to give good estimates. Where was the breakdown?
So I pulled together trying to see what happened when, because again, I was not really a part of the project until a couple months ago. And I can give you all these if you want to see them, but.
You don't have to show me, just kind of speak to it. Mhm.
When we look even at the last time I saw that numbers were presented to the board was in October of 2021. And at that time, they gave 3 scenarios. And scenario 3 was at 114 million. So within that scenario 3, we're at 128 now. So within that, they did show us that latest number at 114 million. Now, they gave 3 scenarios there, which were 1,200, 1,300, and 1,500 capacities, and we're building for 1,400 capacity. So that was, back in October of '21, and then looking at that inflation still, it wasn't 128, but it was 114.
But, so we're looking at the largest, the third option, not the second option?
So it was between the two. Scenario 3 was 13, and scenario 2 was 1,300 students, and scenario 3 was 15, and we're between those at 114.
Okay, and what was number
I mean,
2?
1,400.
Original cost last October?
For 2, for 1,300
Yeah,
was 98.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all my questions, thank you.
And again,
Supervisor DeMotts, sorry.
On your second floor plan, if you could flip to that.
Sure.
It's driving me crazy. The 2 red lines. What are they?
Oh, okay.
Is it just where it's overhang?
That is new building, an old building.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Did not figure that out. And then on your proposed schedule slide, so we're looking at December for a next price update, so that's when we would maybe have another joint meeting or some other type of board update.
Sure. I think that's a board question likely.
I think that might be very timely for a joint session. In a quarter? Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Vice Chair Biggs.
The only question I had, I was interested in, you're talking about the students being able to get to class on time and everything. Do you think that will work, or I guess you're still working on that to figure it out?
We are still working on it, but it is important for you to know that is like one of my main priorities. I said it shouldn't just be the track kids that can get to class on time. We need to be able to go to the restroom. We need a student, if they need to use a wheelchair, we need for them to be able to get from place to place. And so that for me is a top priority and something that I continue to say and ask questions. And those in the meetings know that I keep going back to that one. We need to make sure that our kids can get where they need to be and do the things they need to do.
Was there any kind of cost estimate just on the bridge, doing the bridge part, or was it all tied?
I can only tell you a number I heard, and again, it was just in a meeting, so not back, it's going to cut off probably $4 or $5 million, just taking the bridge out.
Okay, Thank
It's a
you.
big chunk. 4 or 5 million?
All right. Dr. Whitaker, on, when you're going back with the estimated of 128 million, that is if everything stays like it is except for like the indoor track, is that correct?
Yeah, what happens is when we get what's called the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, is the time at which we lock in. And so what happens is when we get the guaranteed maximum price and we say we are ready to go and we sign that contract, that is our guaranteed price. So as long as we stay within our, our contractual agreements, that's not going to change because they've assured us that price. So up until then, inflation hits you. But once you lock into your guaranteed maximum price, then that is the fee.
And I understand inflation, however, that's still a huge difference
It is.
in the amount than even as of May 9th, when we appropriated the 90 million that we borrowed, for these numbers to be so different. So it is, again, very disappointing for our Christiansburg community, for all the input and public's input and getting excited, but we do want to move forward because we do want that renovations and additions done. Can you, I see on the amounts here, where is the $5 million that we did up front about a year ago where we had to do, what was that? Can you explain to me, where was that, what was that spent on?
So with this, it's just cost. It doesn't show spending. So in terms of what we have paid so far, our architecture fees, Katie could probably tell you best, but the money that, was allocated, that 5 million, again, you don't see it here because this is just what is the budget going to look like. I know that those have been for architecture fees. Is that mainly it? Yeah, up
Okay.
until this point.
So that $5 million is not included in here, and that would be additional on this
It would,
budget?
design team fees.
Okay, so they are
Yes.
part of the
Yes.
design team.
Yes, I'm sorry, I
That's-
misunderstood the question.
That's
Yes.
okay, that's all right. I was just wondering, making sure that, and then when you had referenced that, to the effect that they drew a design of what they were told to draw and not actually accurate on what that might really cost, even though that was what was presented to the community?
Yeah, and so when I speak to that, like some of the drawings that we saw at one point included a very large, the gym that was in the back, right? That was something that took the architect a significant amount of time, but is not even in this cost. That
Annie, wasn't that an add-on also? I thought originally that wasn't even part of the plan.
You're
That
correct.
track was something that our previous superintendent had added into the whole plan. I don't think that was something that, the original? No, it wasn't part of the original. It was an add-on. It was part of the original? Oh, okay. I thought it was.
I don't know that the size of it, I believe it went from 140 to 160 to 200 meters, right? So that the track, to my understanding, kept growing.
Yeah,
but
okay,
that they
so
had
it was
planned to
it was a, right, it wasn't,
Yeah,
right.
and then it grew, but I think what the
Right.
administration was trying to do was trying to provide something of an indoor-type track to provide some place for meets to take place.
Kinda like
So-
how this
So
Christiansburg
our
Aquatic
track
Center
team
is.
and other teams could come somewhere to hold meets, and then when they found out, I had been talking to the AD at Christiansburg about sizes at one of the softball games last spring, and when we realized that to meet the requirements of the track meets, the track had to be a certain size, and there was going to be issues with that, with doors and things like that. So that became very speculative once those items got brought up, so.
But it's part of the original, so what I'm,
Well, no, it was, so this big giant one was not part of the original.
was.
It was an auxiliary gym was part of the
That's-
original.
That is it, that
Was
was.
the but that was, but it wasn't that big.
Yeah, I
As
think
big
it was
as that
going to be
giant
attached
rectangle, it was not that
originally,
big.
maybe. I was trying to go back today and look at all the drawings. I think originally it may have been closer to the building and not quite so large.
I'm looking at it right now. It was another gym back there.
Right. And to Dana's point, when it was realized that to run sprints and hurdles, you'd have to open the door, right? And there's already that situation in Lynchburg, right, which is where students have to go to participate in indoor track, since I was doing that in school. And I was very excited. I know folks think, oh, athletics are huge. And for students across Southwest Virginia to be able to have a facility to be able to participate, because they can't, because it's so far away to get to Lynchburg. I mean, it's an hour and a half for us, right? So to your point, there was do a drawing because this is what we want, and not something to say, this is what we can afford. So I appreciate the question.
Thank you. It's just very, again, just heartbreaking for my community to know what they were.
I just want to cut in here for a second, okay? I don't think this building is heartbreaking. I think this is a beautiful building that is going to provide a great educational space for the students in Christiansburg. And if we keep saying how heartbreaking it, no one, I mean, I'm sorry, Supervisor Blevins, but I mean, I don't agree with everything that's happened along the way either, and I'm not thrilled about it all, but I still don't want to downplay that we are providing a great environment for our students, and it is way better than probably any of the other facilities that we'll have in the county at the time. So, I mean, I'm not I guess heartbreaking seems like a very strong adjective to use at this point. I don't know if anybody else on the board would like to chime in on that with me, but I mean, I don't feel, I'm sure you guys are disappointed, and those of you who are Christiansburg reps, you're disappointed, yeah. But are you heartbroken?
I am.
I don't think.
Really?
I think
I am.
So you think should we stop then? I mean, it's,
That's
but,
not the intent.
I know, but
Nobody
it's
has-
like, but see, I
Okay,
guess.
so you asked the question and then you're not allowing anyone to answer. So, yeah, I am disappointed, heartbroken that after so long for Christiansburg to have been waiting and waiting and waiting, and other folks going ahead of us, that when we're finally given drawings to say, okay, this is what we can do, and meeting after meeting with this board to talk about those funds that would be available to be able to meet those designs that have been put in front of all of us, and then to find out, no, that's not going to work. And we're already in a schedule where we need to get moving. We should have been moving. And now it's like, okay, we gotta move, but as we're moving, it's like building an airplane as it's flying. Let's keep chopping, okay? And that is heartbreaking and nerve-wracking and disappointing. Yeah, life is like that, but sometimes it gets better. So anyway, so, but don't just say we can't feel what we feel about what's happening here.
Saying it's how we, go ahead, Jamie, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think one of the things with the community in Christiansburg that I hear is all of the other 3 parts of our county have gotten new buildings. And so trying to, and I'm going to use the phrase, whether somebody likes it or not, sell our community on a renovation to make them realize that, yes, it's not going to come in and just paint walls, put new doors up, break down a few, to make them really realize that this is going to be a good facility. So when we talk about the negatives, when we talk, yeah, that's, I think, where it comes in. It's, you know, whether heartbreaking is the word or disappointed, it's just our community already is going, yeah, once again, we're not getting a new building. Once again, everybody else gets a new building, but not Christiansburg.
That was always part of the plan, though, wasn't it?
No.
I was not on the
No.
board when
No,
any of
it's
those
the- it's
decisions
just-
were made, so.
I think we decided that because of the way the structure of the building with the career and technical education space, it's a focal point for the community. We don't have land opportunity right where it is, that we all decided that it was a good opportunity to do a large renovation.
Well, I'm sure money had something to do with it.
Money
too.
has a whole lot to
It
do with
did.
it. And, you know, we were fortunate when we did the other buildings, building costs were way down. So we were able to get a whole lot more bang for our buck. That's not the situation here. And we understand that, and yes, it's life, but it doesn't make it right, because when the community tells me every day, well, once again, everybody else gets a new building but Christiansburg. And, you know, that's the heartbreaking part, is trying to explain to them why. Look at it this way, you know, we've been able to do some great things with the athletic fields already to say, hey, we're getting there.
Well, I think in general, the whole United States needs to change the perception on new buildings, because I think the chances of that happening in the near future is slim to none. Just because of the cost and the lack of funding for public schools.
That's really critical.
And the fact that, you know, we're starting to get a little landlocked in some areas, not just here, but, you know, across the United States. So I think, you know, we have certainly over the years seen renovations that are just as good, if not better, than a new building. And the fact that, like Jamie said, keeping that school in that location it is and in that community is worth so much to Christiansburg, that we are doing the best we can with what's best for the community.
And you mentioned funding. I mean, at the end of the day, if you guys want to give us some more money, we will be very happy to build more additions or have full glass and build a big track in the back. So with funding, we can do a whole lot. But we are working on, there's no addition. We don't have any money. So there's only so much we can do. And I would love to build a brand new facility. That would be awesome.
I mean, I would maybe caution and say, it's not that we don't have more. We have to be smart about how we spend our money. And we have a long list of schools and facilities that need the money that becomes available as, you know, as some of the loans come up and whatnot. And, you know, we do need to get moving on Christiansburg. We've been talking about it for a long time. I'm personally happy with, I think, I am disappointed that we couldn't do more, but I also think it's disappointing that some of the information we were given wasn't accurate. But I mean, I think I'll also point out, as leaders, I mean, I think we have to question some of this stuff, and, you know, when it is presented, because sometimes it's fun to do a, you know, dog and pony show and say, look at all the great things we can do, but then there's reality, right? And that's something that I did challenge, I think, on several occasions. And again, I think some of the information that we were given, as Ms. Whitaker has said, was not correct. But eventually, the truth comes out, you know? But I don't think we're in a bad place for Christiansburg. I think if you put up any metric of Christiansburg High School in this plan against any other school in the county, whether it's, you know, space per student, dollars per student, number of labs, facilities, or whatever, I think this is going to come out on top. So I do think it's something that people can be very proud of. And I understand what you're saying, Ms. Blevins, and I agree to some degree, but I think also as leaders, we have to remind people what the good stuff is too, you know. But I did want to point out that, you know, the next thing that we really need, I mean, there was some disagreement on our board on how to move forward when we were trying to solve the problems with the overcrowding in some of the elementary schools across the county, especially in Christiansburg. Now, obviously, some of the schools in Christiansburg had the worst overcrowding, and so the decision was made by the board to eventually to just take care of all three of those schools at once. So the next thing when we're done with Christiansburg High School that we got to start thinking about and planning for in the immediate future is, you know, some of our other aging schools and overcrowded schools that we have, you know, in other parts of the county. And for the elementary schools right now, I think that's mainly Blacksburg is going to need some attention. There's, you know, one of the results of going through this exercise, and I don't think we're going to repeat the same mistakes that we made before, but I do think that, you know, with the Blacksburg High School, it had to be scaled down to match the budget, and we find ourselves, what's it been, 4 years, 6 years later, you know, and we're at capacity there. So that's something else that by the time we go build Christiansburg High School, take care of the elementary schools that we need to in Blacksburg, somewhere in there, we're going to have another situation on our hands with Blacksburg High School. So I want to be sure, I want to be sure to thank you guys for your constant support of the funds. I mean, and we could, of course, use more, and things would be easier, better if we had more funds and if we could raise more funds. But given those limitations, that's what, we have an eye on that horizon for what's coming down the pike and the other buildings that need our attention and are going to need tens of millions of dollars down the road. So, Craig, I remember you and I, when I first got on the board, sat down and looked at all the loans and things that were coming up, and it helped me understand, how we kind of have to pace ourselves. And I'm sure as part of any kind of, looking at renewing our long-term plan, we're going to have to do that again.
I appreciate that, Mark. And if you think back, we've actually, because of good, prudent fiscal management, we've been able to borrow at a rate quicker than we initially projected. As a matter of fact, we didn't think we'd get to Christiansburg High School till 2023 or 2024, and we were able to borrow the money in 2022.
That's right. And I got to give a shout out to you guys, and I remember specifically Ms. Bond saying, maybe it was at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, when we were talking about borrowing and pushing to just, while interest rates were low, let's borrow the max that we can, and you guys did that, and I think that's, Oh, you didn't do that? Oh, I thought they did, okay. Okay, well, still, I think we're fortunate to have gotten such a big chunk at lower interest rates, so,
Thank you.
And I do appreciate y'all's support on that.
Thank you. Dr. Whitaker, and so the plan moving forward is to stay, if we can, at 1,300 capacity? Or I'm sorry.
I'm
was it
sorry,
15?
14.
1,400 capacity. Do you know what the high school currently is?
How many students we have in it? Around 1,000.
Any other follow-up with the board?
When all this was starting to take effect, or price was starting to go up, did the architect or anybody contact somebody with the school and say, look, it's going up every day, do we need to move forward with something?
So again, there's no one in this room that was at the table for those conversations. So if they did, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. Let's get, Chair Cass, we can take a 10-minute break?
10-minute break, that sounds like a wonderful idea.
Thank you. 10-minute break.
If everyone could make sure your microphone is red.
Okay, I think it's time to get started again. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is politicized educational issues. And we are really running late tonight, so it's not that I want to skip over this, but I'm going to start with this since it was mostly my concern that got it on the agenda. And I guess not only myself, but other members of the board, as we've been to Board of Supervisor meetings or watched Board of Supervisor meetings, there's been a lot of information that's been shared by the public at these meetings, and I think that the information isn't necessarily accurate, and they're about issues that are educational issues. So what I'd like to propose is that I think in the future, if there are issues that are being brought up at your meetings, I don't want to have to. I don't think it's right that the only way I can respond is by going up in public forum and speaking in 4 minutes to questions that are brought up. So what I would like to ask is that if there is a particular issue that you have, be it critical race theory, transgender and gender identity questions, be it collective bargaining, be it whatever the other realm of things that have been going on lately within education, that you come to us and say, hey, this came up in our meeting. Could you present to us and talk to us about these items? Could you tell us about this? Because our constituents are concerned. And I think instead of just letting people put out a bunch of information that maybe isn't really correct, but then gives people the impression it is because we have no opportunity to respond to it at all, I think it would be helpful for people to know accurate information. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that, but.
Chair Cass, are you addressing the public address at our meetings where our citizens have 4 minutes to address the board? That's called freedom of speech, and we
I
will
understand,
allow
and
that.
they are excuse me, this is a meeting, it's the same as all the other meetings. And I know it's freedom of speech, and I have freedom of speech also, and I'm speaking right now. Don't get angry, please. I'm not getting angry. I didn't clap. Okay. Can we have our meeting, please? Thank you. And what was your question, Ms. Blevins?
So the statement I was making, Ms. Cass, is that
I got it, the freedom of speech. Well, I have freedom of speech also. And I'm speaking now as the chair of the school board, and we would appreciate it if there is an issue that comes up at your board meetings that is related to the school board or education, that you ask us about it and ask us to give you to give you some information about it. If somebody comes up to you and complains to you, if somebody came to me and complained about something within the county that was not part of the school board, I would call you or I would send an email to somebody on the Board of Supervisors and say, hey, this issue's come up. Is that something you guys should deal with? May I make a comment? Yes.
I think Chair Blevins brings up an excellent point, is that I think most of the controversial issues come in during our public address, of which we have no opportunity to respond or ask questions.
Right, either do we.
So it's very rare, sometimes it does happen, but it's very rare that the supervisors bring that stuff into our comments.
But it does. See, what's happened is that's come up in your meetings. And so these issues are brought to you, and then you start discussing them in your meetings. And we would like you to discuss them with us first, that's all. If there is a concern and you'd like to discuss, we would like it discussed.
If we want additional data, we'll ask for it.
Well, then, yeah. But I'm just saying then it shouldn't be discussed if you haven't asked us.
We don't really discuss things at real length, because I think many of our board members realize schools really aren't something that we really can do very much about, other than the dollar.
Allow people to sit in our boardroom and film a 16-minute video.
I don't know how that happened.
Oh, I have a feeling I do know how it happened.
Does anybody know how that happened?
Because so somebody just happened to show up and nobody knew?
Hold on, I think Mr. Meadows is going to.
We have always had a policy of allowing some of the outside groups to use that room for meetings. We have discontinued that policy.
So they used the board meeting so right before, they used it for a meeting and then they filmed that?
We didn't.
And then why would you let them, like, back-to-back videos? Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I mean, I think Mr. Meadows is saying they no longer do that, and I appreciate that. I guess what I would add on to this or say about this topic, and maybe this dovetails a little bit with what Sue is saying, is that when under certain circumstances, when you have those discussions about that stuff, maybe it seems that you're entertaining or encouraging that type of thing. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what it looked like a little bit to me, and I'm not accusing any of you guys of anything. I guess what I'd like to say is that what's happening with public education in our country right now. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening, but one of the things, I mean, there are people whose their goal is to attack public education, to sow discord, to sow misinformation. And we all have to, I think, work together and be vigilant about that type of thing, because that type of thing might help get certain politicians elected. It might help certain, entertainment news people drive ratings and things like that. But it hurts our community. I mean, it hurts our schools. It causes discord. And one of the things I was going to say, we're going through this superintendent search right now, and we've had some conversations with some people who operate in that arena, and it's evident that in places where this type of thing is being entertained, nobody comes out on the good side, and good people are staying away from those counties where that discord is happening and whatnot. And so all I would encourage us to do, all of us, I guess, right, is, if we want to help Montgomery County and help Montgomery County schools and help our recruiting and attract businesses and people moving here, is to, when these things come up, as far as that discussion goes, I'm not saying you guys can't have discussions about it, but as quickly as possible, I would encourage, let's discuss together and get accurate information out there as soon as possible.
I think having regular joint meetings makes sense, and we should do them more often. I think Chair Blevins has done a really great job, or a pretty darn good job, with keeping public address to the 4 minutes, and addressing the clapping, and addressing whatever noise comes from the crowd. There is nothing that we can do about what people say, as long as they're not offensive, right?
We know that.
And Vice Chair Biggs has done a great job to say, there's nothing that we can really do here. And, for example, school vouchers isn't even remotely on the table. There's only so much we can do to help facilitate and make sure that the people get heard and are encouraged to go to the elected bodies where their message could actually make a difference.
That's how I started. I said what I was asking is that if items are brought up that are considered controversial.
They're not on our agenda.
Or, I know they're not, but if it's brought up, then send people to us, or to say, hey, if it's something you're concerned about, if you hear the public bringing up a topic and it seems very concerning, then invite us to come and talk about it so we can.
For me, it's not concerning because I can't do much about it, right? I can listen. I can help encourage my constituents to go to their school board members. But I do have to sit there and listen to what's presented.
And we do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We
And
have
if
to.
we want more information, I can't imagine that any of us wouldn't come to you and ask for more information.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I think all of us on our board would feel, perfectly fine. Like if we heard something and we're like, hey, that doesn't sound like what I think it should be, or am I missing something here? I mean, it's very easy to come to a school board member or staff, or, curriculum is available. You can look up what's in the curriculum. It's all out there. And so, I don't see that as a problem as far as, like if we wanted to get more information. I know like all of us at one point in time have asked for more information on something, but usually it's in funding or something that directly, involves us as a board.
And not everything's false. When people
I never
say,
said
my
that.
child experienced this,
Well,
we can be alarmed just like you can be alarmed,
Right.
So-
Absolutely. There's a difference between my child, though, and then when somebody gives you statistics and things, so.
I guess we're all in agreement then that citizens can come and say what they want to.
I don't think any of us ever thought anything different.
And I'm going to go ahead and add to that, that if I hear something and later on I want to discuss it, I'm going to discuss it that night. And if I need to have some clarification, I contact my own representative on the school board.
Yeah.
So I get information that I need. I don't have a problem with that, but if I want to talk about it, because just like you, I have free speech too. And I'm going to do it if I feel like it, so that's just the way it goes.
Oh,
I think, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with, I totally agree with you, Supervisor Fidjakowski. I think the concern from at least some of us on the board is, in those discussions, are we entertaining and encouraging, misinformation or false facts and things like that? Even if you don't mean to do it, is that what's happening? And I think in some cases that it seems that maybe that happens in some cases. It's not, and that's not anything against you in particular. It's just, I think we just have to be careful, I think, on how we have those discussions and how much to entertain that type of thing. Because what I'm trying to focus on is, is this idea of sowing that discord, which I think is damaging to the county and to schools and to everybody, I think. So that's my opinion on
But
that.
you all get an opportunity also in your board meetings to talk about things. So if you hear citizens all bringing up certain issues and you think it's misinformation, that's your opportunity to correct it.
well, you're not allowed to respond to.
That's not what I'm saying. You're allowed to talk in your meetings, aren't you, after public address?
If it's on the agenda, yes.
Okay.
You have
Y'all
reports?
do your own reports?
I would not be able to address it unless it was on the agenda.
Well, you may want to
But
consider that.
regardless, I mean,
You may want to
understand-
consider that,
I
because that
understand
would
what
be
you're
the
saying.
place for you all to directly answer it, instead of me coming to you, getting clarification, going back and saying something, because it's going to be better coming from you.
What I was saying is we can present to you, if there's a topic, I don't want to belabor it any longer. If there's a topic that you have concerns about, you feel something's happening in our schools that is very concerning to you, then we would be happy to come and talk to you about it, besides anything that's funding related.
Okay, good.
That's all I was saying.
We'll give that a shot.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree. Any citizen who wants to address either one of these boards, they have 3 to 4 minutes to do it, and they can say whatever they want as long as it is not out of line and offensive, right? And we sit there and we listen to it, because that's what we were elected to do. The issue of the communication between this board is not that the school board get called to Board of Supervisors meetings to address issues that you may have concerns about in public forum like that. I don't like to be summoned to a board meeting to talk about a concern that you may have, other than funding. To have a conversation in a situation like this, fine, or individuals, fine, right? But there are things that I have heard that I've gone, oh, what? And I've gone to administration and said, okay, so what's the deal with this? What's going on with that, right? To get the actual information as to how things happened or didn't happen. But I can't sit here and say that citizens do not have the right to come and address these boards. I did it repeatedly before I came on this board to make sure my concerns were being heard. And whether people disagreed or didn't agree about them, I said them.
I never said.
I'm just saying, this is the way it's coming across, and I'm not comfortable with that, because I constantly
You
tell
know what?
people,
Never mind.
come to the board. Come to the board at public address, because you have all the board members there to hear what you're saying if there's an issue.
I'd like to just insert one thing. I think what I hear you saying, Chair Cass, is that us supervisors are discussing things after we hear it during public address. We don't really do that very often. I think where the average person would be sensitive to it is that the topics that have been brought up at our meeting over the last 6 months are really touch points, like, really hot button issues that if we can't respond to them, they're going to be out in the ether, and people are going to, because we can't respond to all of them. So, like Supervisor Fidzikowski and we're all saying is, we'll try to stay in our playpen like we're supposed to, and do the right thing.
You guys are taking all my word. You know what? You were right, Jamie. You were very right. That's all I can say. You were exactly right. And I'm going to say no more. I owe you a drink. Move to the next one. It's all yours, Chair Blevins.
Future county growth and impact to school population. So,
Yeah. This is something I'm really passionate about, and actually, when Chair Blevins and I met with Chair Cass and Penny, I guess we were all together talking about what we were going to put on the agenda, and Sue mentioned this, and this is something I've been on my soapbox about forever and ever, and it's like we approve growth in our county. Virginia Tech drives all the growth, okay? So we have to provide housing. And people go, well, housing, then you'll have more money and you can pay for services. Housing does not pay for services, okay? That's a known fact. So right now, we're putting 2 developments out on Price's Fork Road in the county. So what is that going to do to the school system? Well, Price's Fork, Kips, Blacksburg Middle, and Blacksburg High School are all going to be impacted. Okay, what are we thinking about doing about it? Well, we just saw all this tonight. We're not even talking about what's going to happen in the future. And this is something that's painful to talk about, because to talk about it means you got to think about a plan. And usually a plan involves thinking about how you're going to pay for it, and that's what nobody wants to talk about. So what I'm passionate about is that on our side, we have capital needs also, and we have a plan now, and I think we're going to have further capital needs, because it's not just going to impact the schools, it's going to impact county services all the way around, including our courts and our jails and everything else. So we need to be having discussion about thinking about the future. And this is something that in the history that I've been involved with Montgomery County is just sort of coming to the forefront. It used to be, don't talk about that. Yeah, don't talk about that. Just wait till something happens. We'll drive the car till it falls apart. Well, no, we need to talk about it because the way tech is growing and the missing partner in all of this at the table is Virginia Tech. And we need to talk with them. They need to come and say, what is their strategic plan? How many people do they plan to bring in here besides students? Do they have something to offer to help along the way? So far, no. The CRC keeps growing. There's where all the businesses are. So we need to bring everyone involved in some manner to the table to really start talking about it. And so that's how this
I think
sort
the
of,
town planning people too, because
yeah,
you've got,
ended
you know,
up on the
Oxford,
agenda.
town of Christiansburg, both
Yeah,
are,
because it's
you know,
spilling into
exploding.
Christiansburg, yeah.
And I, you know, when they're making these decisions regarding new developments, what are they taking into consideration, at least for us in particular, we think about, you know, schools and, you know, are they taking into consideration how the effect of these new developments, what effect they're going to have on the schools? And Craig?
The work that's already being done right now on 114 is already going to put Bellevue over what we just
And on Price's Fork Elementary is going to be full. Remember when everybody thought, oh, it was too big?
Yeah, well, we did the right thing there for a change.
But it's soon.
It's soon going to be too small.
Well, and I was going to say also that that's been a topic that we've talked with the interim superintendent about as well, is redoubling our efforts to make sure county staff and school staff are at the table for those discussions. I know there was a period of time where there wasn't communication going up the ladder as far as impacts for schools, and I know that Annie and I have talked about that. We have a new planning director over on the county side. We've mentioned to her the importance of making sure all those items are discussed. And I was talking with Board Member Trebek at the break, too. We've got to get, just as we've adopted a long-term plan for the county's capital needs, we've got to diligently work to do the same thing for the schools.
I'm sorry. One of the other elephants in the room is the responsibility of developers. Okay, nobody wants to talk about, yeah, they need to be paying a few pennies for developments that just impact the schools, impact the county, and they just keep building, and I'm sure they're making a lot of money. Some of that should be going back into the infrastructure and the schools in this county.
Well, you know, the developers do pay what the county charges them, permits and everything. And going back to what Supervisor Biggs talking about, how many years we've been talking to Virginia Tech trying to get them to help us? So,
Forever.
I mean, why would you even give them a seat at the table? They're not going to listen. They just keep putting property off a tax roll and think we're just supposed to bend over for them. It's not right.
That's not really true, because when
yes, it is.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, when I was vice chair a couple years ago, we would have those monthly meetings where Virginia Tech would show up. But those are very general, meetings. You need to have some kind of meetings that are specifically talking about development only.
We have. We have.
When?
Absolutely have,
When?
because we ask them for money.
When?
They feel like they're a big part
Probably right
because they
before you got on
employ.
board, actually.
2019,
That didn't go
when
anywhere.
had to get
No, it didn't go anywhere.
the EDA, we had to get that approved for the foundation.
And yes, the foundation, I mean, every time they buy up property, it goes off a tax roll.
That wasn't like a meeting. They came to our meeting. That wasn't what Chair Biggs is talking about.
We have had a lot of discussions with them. Even one of the supervisors, not on here no more, was gonna take it to Richmond and see if somebody would carry it through there, if they had to pay us something.
Oh,
They're not a partner.
you're,
They're out for what they can
we're
get.
talking about several things now.
Yeah.
They are paying us a little bit,
Who is?
right?
No.
They're paying us a little
Virginia
bit.
Tech don't pay us nothing.
No, seriously,
Come on,
Craig.
Craig.
The foundation is working on a plan to provide some revenue to the county.
I thought we were expecting revenue like this year.
We are expecting revenue. It's not a lot.
It's not what?
It's not a lot. It's probably $100,000 to $200,000, but
So
yes.
that's the
And,
point.
and the foundation been working on that for, I know, 9 years now.
Yeah, but over, Craig, you were talking about over the years, it will become,
It should. Now, they're experiencing their own challenges right now with leasing of office space and other issues, just like any developer. But,
They're not a developer, they're
Yeah,
a
but-
university.
well,
And they should operate like one to support the community that they're in.
but it still comes back to Vice Chair Biggs.
okay.
It's not the same
offense
thing.
taken.
You have to all get together and talk about
Yeah.
all the issues, not just this one, but
The
all the
first
issues
step
about
would be to
development.
have them come to a group and present their strategic plan. Because the last time we saw a presentation was when Sherwood Wilson was in charge, and we went over there, and we were flabbergasted at what was going to be happening.
Yeah, if you look at the 10-year plan,
Yeah.
it is pretty frightening.
Yeah, and so
We're
that
talking
needs to
massive
be,
growth.
yeah, we need to, everyone needs to see that, so we,
When they admitted too many students, and what that did
Mhm.
The traffic.
getting to, with our students and buses and staff getting to the schools. We only found out about that at a meeting that we have with them once a month, as a last.
Like an aside. Oh, and by the way.
Side note.
So maybe we can address that, Mr. Meadows, we could do a letter and say that that came up for our discussion and that we can have some type of meeting for
It'd
the
be a
strategic
great thing
plan.
to have at a joint session with all of us and them at the table.
They use they use the community as a sell factor.
Yes.
Oh, we have
Yes.
there's such great town-gown relationships and,
Right.
you know, and,
Schools?
and they use us, to recruit, the great school system, yet, you know, what do we get in return? So,
Yeah, so one of the things we got in return was when we were trying to obtain land for Price's Fork Elementary School
Yeah.
and tried to work with them. And what did we end up paying for that piece of land of theirs? Wasn't it about $1 million? So that we could build a school, so that they could say, we got great schools,
Yeah.
right?
That they're
Exactly.
now trying to
overcrowd.
overcrowd.
Right.
And I believe we got letters of how we needed to
Yes.
build Blacksburg High School a certain way
Oh,
from
they came and spoke.
Virginia Tech, and
Oh, they
because,
did. They
yeah,
did
that's
that
right.
before and
That's
stuff.
right.
Yes.
Why don't both boards write Virginia Tech a letter and say, give us money you owe us?
Or else?
I think a meeting would be great, Chair Blevins. And
Yeah.
if we can make that happen, even if it's once a quarter, it would be well worth it going forward.
With a partnership kind of. essay.
yeah,
Thank
like,
you.
you know, what are you guys doing? And here's where we are, like, with our services, with our schools, this is where we are.
Well, maybe they need to realize, I don't know if.
They don't know.
If they realize where we are right now.
They don't.
That our schools are bursting at the seams, that we're gonna run out of space, that we don't have.
Oh, my goodness.
You think they know?
Well, they do like they do a service that the employee, their employment from Montgomery County. I feel like that's, because in years past, don't you remember that comment being made that they
Oh,
did
yeah.
their part?
By employing,
We employ about everybody.
that's right, right, and that was the comment years ago.
What was
So,
it? I didn't hear that.
Start somewhere.
Just the fact that they're one of the largest
Employer.
employers in Montgomery County, and that's their part that they feel in our county, is employing so many people. But now, that was a long time ago and years ago, and, that was one of the comments.
Yeah. And my point is, they need to publicly, in public, we need to say, here's the impact. Yeah, we know you're doing, here's the impact.
Now, you know yourself, Mary, we done told them that twice since I've been on the board.
But there's also new people there, and, Sherwood's not there anymore.
Nope.
And not that he was doing a bad job, but new people have new ears.
Let's get Ian, he's back there, write a big story about what they're doing to us.
So we will reach out then to see if we can't have, and that's just good community relationships, and I know that they want that, and of course, they are the economic driver, and so we want to make sure they understand the demands and services.
And the
with our
impact,
EMS
yeah.
and impact on our schools.
And we want to be
reach out
able
that.
to meet those needs and
Right.
services.
Absolutely.
Yes. Good point.
Any other discussion on county growth and impact to school population?
So since Penny brought up one elephant in the room, I'll keep bringing up this one. I know it's not going to go anywhere, but I think it's worth at least talking about a little bit. One of the changes that we've seen, I think it's been in the last several years, I don't know exactly how much, and Annie, you might have to help me out with the acronym here. I'm not very good with all these different acronyms, but, the state gives us, a large portion of our money, roughly half, and they have a formula that they use for that. What is the composite index? That's it. I guess it wasn't an acronym, but anyway, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago that the composite index, we lost a lot of money.
Just like a year or so ago.
Yeah, and the takeaway from the takeaway from all of this stuff is that the state was saying to us, you guys should be able to fund a bigger portion of the schools than you currently were or that you currently do. So that was basically the state's way of saying, according to our formula and looking at all the counties across the state,
Your people make too much money.
well, or
You have too much revenue coming in.
no, that we don't, not that, that we don't have enough revenue coming in. We should have more revenue, i.e. we should have a large. Yes, the county had enough revenue coming, well, I don't know about enough revenue, but I mean, it's basically the state's way of basically saying, you guys should be able to fund it yourselves, i.e. whether it's raising taxes or finding other ways to raise that revenue, you should be able to do it. So, I mean, to me, that's a county, I mean, it's a school issue for us because we get less money, but that's a county issue for you guys to figure out how do you make up that gap? How do you basically do what the state is telling us to do as a county and as a school system, so.
So are you done, Mark? Okay. So Chair Blevins and I have touched on this a couple times, and I've shared my concern with her, and I think I've also probably somewhere down the line with many years back, Mr. Fidzikowski and I have discussed, and I know I have shared this with the previous administration, but since we are talking about community impact and community joining, so I'm interested in getting both towns interested in our school system. And I know we are Montgomery County Public Schools, but we have several schools that sit in our town limits. And I got very upset at a recent town council meeting where, I'm not going to open the can of worms, but they did not want to provide funding for something that was needed for the schools. So I have yet to figure out how, over the years, the towns have not been more responsible financially or fiscally responsible to help our schools. So I would like to see why or how we can possibly get that going and see if we can't get some financial aid from the towns.
Well,
Does that
towns
happen
don't have-
anywhere in Virginia?
Mary, you
I-
know more than anybody.
Yeah,
There-
not that I know of, except I do think there's something that goes on with Albemarle County and the University of Virginia, to go back to the other topic, but.
There's no statutory requirements for
Yeah,
towns to
towns don't have
contribute,
to
but I don't
take care
know
of
if
schools.
there are other means of.
Now,
So
could
a few
they
years-
give a donation?
Well, that's,
Yes.
and there again,
few years-
that would be my.
A few
right.
years ago, when I had attended one of my first VSBAs, there was at the time one school system in the state that was run by a town, even though it was in a county. But I don't think it exists anymore. So to answer your question about it, I think it's certainly possible to have partnerships. I think it's probably unrealistic. It's probably unrealistic to think that the towns are just going to make donations. But I do think that there's, I think we could get in a partnership with them where they would get something for their money.
But the towns
and-
want the say when we're building, and we have to approve things through that. So my feeling is, if they want to have say when we build our schools and some of the other issues with our schools, then to me, just as being a good community partner, they should be knowing the financial issues that are going on with the schools and trying to continue to bring people to our community, which both of our towns do, that they would want to help our school systems more than what they do.
We do help with the libraries. The Blacksburg and Christiansburg do give money for the Christiansburg and Blacksburg libraries.
That's good to know.
Yep,
But that's,
I think sometimes they might not realize how many students live in the town of Christiansburg
Yes.
that we serve.
Absolutely.
And I know at one of the meetings that we were at, when we were, talking about the old Christiansburg Middle School and the zoning and the things that, and we had brought forth how many buses actually serve the town of Christiansburg students. I think that was a big eye-opener, because I really sometimes don't think they realize.
Town of Blacksburg, too.
Or the town of Blacksburg, too. I mean, I wasn't at that meeting, so I'm just happened
It was
to
at the
speak.
town meeting.
That,
Right.
we
Right,
were
at
at,
the
if you
at the
remember.
town council meeting,
But,
absolutely right.
I mean, it was just kind of like, wow. And I truly don't, sometimes you just do what you always done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think sometimes bringing it to the table and saying, do you realize? This is how many students that we serve in the county and pay
That
for
live
the
in the
buildings
town.
and the buses and everything else. But all these children live in the town limits. And, we're all a big part of this picture together. If one, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of people don't even realize what board I sit on. Half of people tell me I'm on the town council, half the people tell me I'm on the board of supervisors. And it's the same with y'all. They think you're on the school board or they think you're on the town councils. A lot of our community members don't realize who's what. So when we're in the, excuse the expression, doghouse, we're all in it together. So, we need to try to find a way to get out of it and all figure out the best way that we can make the most positive impact for all our students in Montgomery County, because it all does affect all of us, every bit of us.
And I think the meeting that you're referencing and some of the things, other county-related things, not just school-related things, that have been receiving media coverage coming out of the town of Christiansburg of late have been very concerning and symptomatic of either a misunderstanding of the links that the county as a whole has to go to provide services, not just education, but all services. Or just, I totally understand what you're saying, and I don't know that they're going to voluntarily contribute, but I think some of the dialogue lately has been damaging.
It's been very disappointing. I will be honest, I was very disappointed in our council members.
I think it's been very damaging to relationships.
And it absolutely has.
And as Jamie said, we're all in the doghouse together when we're in the doghouse. We've all got to work together and get along. And of late, it's been disheartening.
It has.
What has happened. I think our boards, we don't have perfect relationships, but we do make an attempt to work together. The recent decision to put school resource officers in county schools was a big deal, and to see what happened, the outcome of that afterwards kind of crushed me a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Because that was absolutely needed and should have been done a long time ago, but the way that the town handled that,
the way that it was
in my
spoken
opinion,
about.
was totally disrespectful.
Yeah.
And not right.
Yeah. So I hear you, and I think you're right.
Thank you.
As we continue on growth and impacts real quick, what is the current school population? How many students do we actually have?
Oh, I wish you hadn't asked. I had that just this morning. I want to say 10, I had it this morning.
right around there.
10,000.
Around
Oh.
10,000.
9,180.
That one is wrong.
That's old. It
That's
changes
what you
quick.
smelled out.
Yeah.
It changes fast.
Yeah. It's 10, I want to say 10,107, but.
10,107 or give or
Don't
take?
quote the
Actually,
number,
that looks
but I'm
familiar. I thought I
pretty
remember
close,
seeing
I
that.
think.
10,100.
10,000, yeah.
I was doing math
Just a
with
little
it
over
today.
10,000.
So the publication that just came out a couple months
Yeah, I
ago.
believe that publication excluded pre-K by accident.
It also, we pulled the number from Power School, we pulled the number
There's
from
still
Power
mistakes
School.
that happen.
And if you can believe this, we pulled the number after we had rolled the seniors out, but before kindergarten registration had occurred. We were missing an entire grade level of students. It was an error in data gathering, and we didn't catch it in the editing process.
Don't you have to see what happens at the end of September, though, the way it, because isn't that the important number?
Yeah, we counted.
Yeah.
But the
So
actual
it's-
ADM is March, that is the actual, you do
Well,
a,
there's two. There's the fall count,
The
yes,
fall,
and
yeah.
then, and the spring count, they kind of can go back, but there's two
Yeah.
counts that they take throughout the year.
any?
Here you go, last year. Sorry, 9704 is what that number is, I'm sorry, for last year.
9704.
Yeah.
Last year.
Was 9704. So I just had the wrong number, I apologize. 9704 was last year's recorded number, and then we're still counting because right now some kids still haven't shown up. You know, you count and do those things, and I just don't have it at the top of my head. Say it again? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on growth and school impacts?
I would just share one thing I do want folks to be aware of, and I shared it, you know, at our Greater Montgomery as well, but, you know, we are getting full. So Blacksburg High School is almost full. It is almost at capacity. Like now, it is almost at capacity. So in terms of capacity, we can extend that to the VDOE numbers. You know, we like to stay at a smaller number, but that school is, I mean, there's not much more space. The communities that are moving in, you know, that will be going to Blacksburg, very, very, very soon, discussions of you know, I don't want to scare folks, but we are almost full. So that is a real conversation that I think these boards are going to need to start future planning for, is what's going to happen when the children move into the new communities that will live in Blacksburg.
So we keep talking about the two developments out on Crisis Fork. Do you know how many high school students are naturally supposed to come out of those communities?
I think that's a little hard to guess. It depends on the selling and,
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
there's some
there might be a
formula.
formula.
I don't have the numbers. I
But-
could get them for you.
But we're at
but-
capacity before 600 new houses are built.
Oh, yeah, we're at, I mean, we're,
And that's not even counting the development in the rest of Blacksburg.
Right.
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 You
So
know,
right now, on the subdivision on the left, as you go to Price's Fork, they're already starting the townhouses. And in the subdivision on the right, behind M&M, those will start, the build will start in October. So we should be seeing a lot of students come next fall, for sure.
Do we know, do you know how many houses, how many, I thought I heard it was like 2,000 additional.
It's a combination of townhouses and private family homes, single-family dwellings, in both of them. I don't know the exact numbers.
See, I think developers should be required to come to one of our meetings and tell us what it is they're building and.
Or the planning commission should pass that along to us.
It'd be nice to share the information instead of us all trying to figure it out.
You can always look at the board meetings when we
Yeah,
approve those
doesn't the
developments.
planning department give back to the developers the impact on the schools?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
One last question. Dr. Whitaker, do we have schools that do have capacity?
Absolutely. You have capacity in Eastmont High School, Shawsville. You know, the new Christiansburg will have capacity, but that's certain, yeah.
Yeah,
So in that whole strand, you have space, and a good deal of it.
Harding Avenue Elementary is at 140-some% capacity right now.
And so like, Blacksburg High School, as of last year's fall enrollment, was at 1322, and our capacity is 1,400. So again, we can make capacities bigger because we don't share spaces, but, you know, we go much farther, and we are going to have teachers sharing spaces in that building.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I think we can move on to the next thing. Update on the superintendent search.
I don't have too much to update since the last time I spoke. We are continuing on the search. We are closing in on the end. That's it.
Is there a date for that to be finished by?
We've asked for an extension, because the 13th of September, the person would have had to start by then. And we are not going to have somebody starting on the 13th of December.
Do you have an estimate of when that might be?
No.
October, November?
No.
This year, next year?
No,
I have no estimate.
I have no estimate.
Is there a date for the extension? I thought I heard somebody say something like there was an additional 100, is there not?
180 days. The board will have an additional 180 days.
180 days before you have to.
It's about half a year.
Do we have,
I
as you
can't
guys are
share any more information.
narrowed down to,
I can't share any more information. You can keep trying. You can keep trying. Don't worry, I will let you know as soon
Well,
as
it would be the
I
same
can.
thing if we were trying to
I'm trying to
hire
build up
someone.
the
For
excitement.
Craig's job, we couldn't say, no? Not that he's
Build
going
anticipation.
anywhere.
Anticipation.
any board members have any comments or questions on that? Pretty good? We can try, keep asking. Yeah, okay. But we do have at least another 180 days, so there's not a rush to fill the spot.
There is a rush in that we would like to have somebody start as soon as they possibly can. We're very excited about having a new person on board, but I can't tell you when that date would be. I can't tell you who that person will be. I've shared at our meetings that we had a number of candidates. We did screening interviews, we did second interviews, and we're moving along at, I think, a really good pace. But I can't tell you much more than that.
All right. Other items of mutual interest? Board members?
I'll just say this one thing. Each one of us around here are elected officials. And the buck stops with us. It don't matter who we hired. The citizen voted for us. So anything goes wrong in our area or y'all's area, you know the buck stops with us.
My only comment is I'm really glad that
would
we're
say-
having this meeting. We waited a long time to have it. It was long overdue, and it makes so much difference to have meetings set up so we all get together on a regular basis, and I think it's been very helpful.
We need to do it more often, on a regular schedule.
December, didn't we say December? What was happening in December? We said December.
Really?
Yeah.
So-
well, 'cause it was
Nobody's got
when-
anything going on in December, right?
No, it was something to do with Christiansburg High School and the final costs and numbers and.
Yeah.
Ms.
So,
Franklin?
yeah, so, Mr. King, I have said that many times, but there are some times when that buck doesn't even get to us so that we can even respond to it. Or even know about it. And that's why we are looking at everything to make sure that we have everything we can in place so that every buck will be stopping at this table and we will have a clear picture as to what's going on with it.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's our job as elected officials, when we got projects going, it's our job as elected officials to make phone calls, to have visits with the one that's in charge of it and say, how is it going? I mean, that's just like an architect or something. They should have come to a school board meeting and told you, that roof's bad, we got to fix it. So-and-so said that we'll do that down the road. But that was that architect or whoever that y'all hired, it was their job to come to y'all because you're in charge. The
And-
administration, I don't care.
know
And
who they
we
went to.
don't.
What we don't know is whether they went to anybody else.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It should go
Well,
back on the architect or whoever, because
We cannot
What if the
force.
architect went to the appropriate person?
number one is this elected body
They
here
don't, they
is
don't
the.
go to
appro-
us. That's not who supervises the architect. The superintendent supervises the architect.
You're in charge.
That,
It doesn't come directly to the
Doesn't
board.
come directly to the
It's up to the
board.
superintendent to advise the board.
That's called operational.
Well, what I'm saying though, if he or she, whatever, knows the roof was bad, and somebody told them, well, we're not gonna worry about that, we'll do that down the road, they should have come to one of y'all and said, listen, he wants to put it off, or she wants to put it off, but
We
we,
don't disagree with you. It didn't happen, and we're working on processes to make it happen.
I mean, that's all I'm saying, the buck
This
stops
needs
with
to
us.
end worse.
yeah, so,
But the
and,
same
and again, I can't make people speak, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Cannot make people speak.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
Plus, they would have been risking their job to do it, their commission, their contract.
How's that?
If you're a supervisor and one of your contractors goes above your head, you think you're gonna wanna work with that contractor if you're the one that's charged with supervising them?
That's just like whistleblowing. Did you not discuss just whistleblowing a while ago?
You know,
I
you
mean,
can
you
have,
got policies for that?
And as I
I'm
s-
not saying that it's right or wrong, I'm saying it puts the contractor in a position where they could lose the contract if they are the whistleblower. And what I'm hearing from these
Contract
folks
says that you report
to this person. And what I'm hearing
that's-
from these folks is there was a culture problem that was created where people were not empowered to speak their minds or to have their opinions. And that happens. People in leadership, I mean, power corrupts.
It's not an agenda item.
Huh?
It's not an agenda item.
What's that?
And again, it's I mean, we can't fix we can only go forward.
What's not an agenda item?
What was that?
We're not, that's not an agenda item for us to discuss.
It's an other
It's,
item.
it's,
Yeah, mutual concern.
interest.
Yeah, we're on that.
Really?
Yeah, we're on the, yeah.
Really?
Beat the dead horse on that.
So
Same thing we did.
when you want somebody to quit talking, you say it's not on the agenda.
Other items that I guess we can come up later, I had wanted to talk about some safety and behavioral issues within the school system. I know you're not prepared
think
for
that's all.
those type of, and that can be a discussion for later, but as we are hearing from our public, either in public address or in emails or when you're out in the grocery store, we always encourage, we want every citizen to come forward and speak and let us know what's going on. We are hearing some concerns about safety issues, behavioral issues in the school, which we're all aware of those, and we know that COVID has just put even a more demand and challenge on everybody. And so I'd like that to be a future item, whether it be in the,
Do you refer them to the superintendent? Because I would, if a parent came to me,
yes.
I would say,
And I tell them I don't work for the
contact
school
Dr.
board. I didn't hire that person. Yes, I do that all the time. But still, that,
So that it can get the right attention in that.
Right, that's who, yeah, I mean, if a parent came to me and said, I've got there's a problem at X school, I would advise them to call Dr. Whitaker. That's what they need. I can't solve the problem as a board member. And just like you can't solve their problem, they need to go to the person who can solve their problems, and the person who can solve their problems is Dr. Whitaker. And that's what I would advise any of you, when you run into a parent in the supermarket or wherever they are, we hear because we get, as many people you hear, we probably hear double that. But when you think about the number of those people versus how many students we have and how many parents we have, and it's a smaller number, but still, they need to contact Dr. Whitaker if there is a particular concern, because we would want to address it right away. And the only way we can address it is if we know about it.
very good. So we will continue, and I'm sure all our board members will follow up if citizens reach out to them. And of course, we can hear that during our public address as well. But then at one of our meetings, we can address some of those issues and work through those things as well. Does any other board member have anything else they'd like to bring forward or for future discussion? Do I have a motion to come out of work session? Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I have a motion to enter into closed session for the board to discuss 2 employee matters and 2 personnel matters? I think it's 1 employee matter and 2 personnel matters, as authorized by section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia.
Adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Drake or Ms. Woods?
Gotcha. Ms. Bond? Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson? Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Okay, we are now in closed session. I guess Annie's room, right? Yeah, Annie's room. I think this is still good or should I just toss it? Are you?
Believe it or not.
Okay.